Welcome all my fellow Washington brethren and sistren. I am your man and resident Washington football fan, Lou. Thank you for joining me here on the Washington Football Report. So, a lot to get to tonight, as there always is on Thursday nights on this program. And first and foremost, I want to thank every single one of you out there for joining me tonight as we'll talk about this roster, because things are really interesting with this roster. I don't think we know as much as we would normally this time of the year, and I've stated that already, but after watching some of these clips from practice and watching some of these still photos, and you'll see some more of them tonight, and then listening to Ron Rivera and kind of putting all of the pieces of the puzzle together, and then listening to some of these beat reporters and beat writers that are out at Redskins Park watching practice, it's not going to be as easy as it's been in the past. We'll also talk about some of the positional battles and what direction they're going in as we get closer. Guys, understand, 2 weeks from today, the NFL season starts. Like, I don't know if it feels that way, because normally we would have those preseason games to kind of ramp us up and the excitement starts to build to a crescendo. And we haven't had that this year, so maybe you're not feeling that buzz that you get when you get close to the season. But we're 2 weeks away from Thursday Night Football, Texans at Chiefs, to kick this thing off. I mean, we're 2.5 weeks away from the Washington football team hosting the Philadelphia Eagles to kick off the 2020 season. It'll be here before you know it. So a lot of these things are going to be solved here over the next week or so. And I've pretty much given you a lot of information throughout the course of the week during the practices. We thought we were going to have some more practice to chop it up about today, but they canceled practice along with a number of other teams around the league, as you're seeing these sports and these teams kind of show a little bit of solidarity. Not every team is signing up for this. The Ravens practiced today. They said, we'll talk after practice, okay? Not everybody was on board with not having, I think, more so with the Washington football team, I think they felt like a day off. You know, look, I'm not here to diminish them trying to have a conversation about the social piece and the social injustice and how these players feel about it and how they're being impacted. And I'm not saying that that's not actually taking place. Okay, however, don't think for 1 second, because Washington, they were one of the first teams to say, nah, we're going to pass on practice tomorrow. They were one of the first teams to come out and do that. And I think the reason why is because, no, let me say this. I think part of the reason why, a large part of the reason was like, we're going to try to let some of that Daniel Snyder, Washington Post stuff kind of simmer down a bit, kind of let it cool off a bit. It's hot right now. If we give them an extra day to kind of breathe a bit, maybe something else will happen in the news cycle, kind of push us down a little bit further. And yeah, look, they're still going to get questions. They understand that. They know that, you know, it's just a part of the game. However, you know, it will subside a little bit more. I told you we live in a 30-minute news cycle around here. So, you know, things happen like this, and next thing you know, something else big breaks, and that's a minor story. It's on the back burner. So I think that had something to do with it too, them canceling practice, as much as the social injustice as well. But at this point, that's nor here nor there. They did not have practice today. Rivera said at some point they are going to practice inside of FedEx Field. They just don't know when. It's to be continued. It's going to be named at a later date and time. So that's TBD right now. So we'll see what happens with that. Don't know when they actually will resume practice. I'm assuming Friday. You know, they'll get back on the field. Will they be in helmet and shells like they had intended on being in helmet and shells on Thursday? Or will they jump back into full pads on Friday? Or will they not practice on Friday either and get back out there on Saturday? Look, there's not a lot of time before the season starts, so I can't imagine them wanting to waste a bunch of practice days and not get out there and get something done. So I think today was beneficial. You know, everyone have their voices heard, have that open forum, have open dialogue, have everybody be involved. I think that was definitely positive and something that needed to happen. And then you get back to work. So we'll see what happens with this football team in that fashion and in that regard. But we'll also talk about some players that I don't think you guys understand where they are in the totem pole right now. I think there are several players that you are assuming, oh yeah, that's a guy we're going to be relying on heavily come week one. Not so fast, my friends. And then there's some other guys that I think they're starting to rise and potentially could be much bigger contributors than you may think as this season gets closer. So we'll talk about those players as well. But in any event, let's jump into the proceedings this evening. There are a lot of things that I do want to get to tonight, including inside the pictures, coach and players speak, all of your comments, and a bunch of other things. So let's jump into the proceedings this evening and get to any super chats that may exist. And so let's start the night off with my man Barrett Downing. Thank you for the super chat, BD. Greatly appreciate you, Barrett Downing, who simply writes, "Big ups, my brother. I appreciate you, Barrett Downing, as always, holding me down." Thank you so much, BD, for the super chat and the love. Got another super chat. This one is from Rob U. Thank you for the super chat, Rob U. Greatly appreciate you, Rob U. So, with that being said, Rob writes, "What up, Lou? Unfortunately, Snyder is not going anywhere, but hopefully he can let our new team president and Ron Rivera work without interference." Well, I essentially told you guys what was going to transpire. Now, I will say this. I was wrong about Snyder issuing a statement because I said that I didn't think he was going to issue a statement. I thought he was going to be stubborn and just kind of rest on the statement that he had put out previously when the first article came out. And I thought he was going to push Jason Wright and Ron Rivera out to the forefront and allow them to handle this and try to put out those fires and him kind of stand in the background as he used to when Bruce was here. However, that's not what he did. He issued a statement. Now, the crazy part about all of this is that the team issued a statement, and that statement, was one of those, hey, we are deeply saddened by all of the things that have been said and have been done in this organization or alleged in this organization over the last however many years, but we're going to come in here. It's a new day. We're going to come in here. We're going to fix all of these issues. We're going to get this thing on the right track, and we're going to turn this into a respectable organization. And so that was the team statement. Obviously, I'm paraphrasing. And then Dan put out a separate statement with no team letterhead on it. It looked like it was just on some office copy paper from his team, pretty much saying, hey, I didn't know anything about any of this stuff. All of this stuff is untrue. It's unfounded. I didn't ask anyone to put together a DVD. I've never seen this DVD that they're talking about. Never asked this cheerleader to go upstairs and meet my friend or any of that stuff. None of this stuff is true. What do you think he's going to say? And he said that he actually did apologize this time for the culture and said, but he did it in a passive aggressive way again, pretty much saying, hey, I didn't know anything about this and it happened under my watch and all of these things were running rampant and I was in control, but I didn't know it was happening. And I gave control to too many different people who didn't do their job. And so because of that, it falls on me. So again, passing the buck, placing the blame elsewhere, where he really just should have said, hey, this is my fault. This has happened under my watch, and we're going to get this thing rectified. And I've started to put the people in place to help do this. But that's Daniel Snyder. It's what he's been. It's what he is. It's what he's going to be. The man's 55 years old or however old he is. It's mid-50s. You're at the point now where he's not going to change. He is who he is as a human being. So I wouldn't look for anything different. I can't tell you how many times I read comments from some of you guys. Well, he's going to change. What makes you think he's going to change after 20 years of owning this football team? He's 55 years old. All right. Most people don't change after the age of 40. The man's 55, I think. He's not changing a damn thing. This is who he is. But hopefully, as my man Rob, you said very eloquently, the hope, and I said this on the video yesterday, the hope is that Ron Rivera is able to win. Jason Wright is able to do his job adequately enough to keep Daniel Snyder at bay. And this thing turns around and Dan is able to sit back and let the football people, the business people, everyone involved that he hired, Julie Donaldson on the video side of things and the communication side of things, and Jason Wright on the business side of things, and Ron Rivera and Kyle Smith on the football side of things, allow these people to do their jobs uninterrupted. And hopefully we see the dividends, because if we don't see them fast enough, we know how impatient Daniel Snyder can be. So the hope is Ron wins next year. I know some of you want him to win this year. Even Ron himself has said in a roundabout way, look, this year is all about getting this team in a position mentally so that they can start understanding what it's going to take to win. And he's talked about that in practice. And I omitted this on Wednesday when the team had their last practice before the break. And I told you that there are a lot of things Ron talked about, but one of the things I left out was the fact that he was upset. And I actually went and I pinned a comment to that video because I was so upset at myself for forgetting to bring that up, because it was actually a big piece of what he said in the post-practice presser with the media, which was, hey, it was a really sloppy practice mentally, too many mistakes by the players out there. One time we had 10 guys in the huddle, guys were lining up in the wrong spots. These are types of things that you just can't have happen during the course of a game. Now, he said, I think the guys are mentally fatigued. They haven't had a break in quite some time. So the day off coming is going to really be something that is much needed. However, you've got to be able to push through that. The good teams in the league find a way, especially when you're not overly talented. The Chiefs can overcome 3rd and 15, 3rd and 17. We can't have 3rd and 15. We can't have 3rd and 17. We're not built that way. So we have to do everything right. And Rivera has pretty much said, look, when he was in Carolina, that's how they won. They won by doing things right. He said when we won the turnover battle, you know, when we were +2 or more in the turnover battle, we won 93% of the time when he was in Carolina. That's what he said. He said, now, conversely, while at that same time, and he was talking 2013 through 2017 in Carolina, he said in that same time frame here in Washington, when you won the turnover battle +2 or more, you only won 63% of the time. That's a dramatic, or 67, percent of the time. That's a dramatic drop off, you know. So even when we won the turnover battle, we weren't assured of winning the football game. Even when we won by +2 or more, we weren't assured of winning the ball game. Whereas in Carolina, it was damn near a given that they were going to win when they won the turnover battle +2 or more. So, but that's the sign of a good football team. You make mistakes, they make you pay for those mistakes, and they don't make a ton of mistakes of their own, so you don't get to take advantage of those. So he's trying to build a team that it doesn't have self-inflicted wounds, doesn't kill themselves with penalties and turnovers and things of that nature. And so these are all things he's trying to instill in this team in year one. He's trying to teach them how to win, how to go about their business, how to push through fatigue mentally and physically on the football field. These are all things that we've seen this team succumb to over the years with Gruden, whether it's slow starts to seasons or slow starts in the second half. We come out like gangbusters early in the ball game, come out of the halftime gate flat as you can be, and end up giving up a lead and getting blown out. And so we've seen these things. He's trying to change the culture here. And it's not just in the locker room. It's not just the perception of this team. It's on the field as well. So a lot has to be done. And when I look at this whole situation, I just hope he's able to turn this around fast enough so that he'll have the time necessary to do everything that he wants to do here. Because if he doesn't win in a certain amount of time, even though he probably told Dan this is a 3 to 4 year turnaround, Dan can say, yeah, I'm all on board And then, you get 2 years of losing, and all of a sudden Dan gets antsy. So, like Rob, you said, hopefully Ron Rivera, Jason Wright, and company get to do their job, Kyle Smith included, get to do their job uninterrupted and hopefully turn this thing around. But I told you guys last week or last month when the Washington Post article came out, I told you guys this past week when the second article, the 2 days ago or yesterday, whenever it was, when that article came out and I did the video, it's not enough to get Dan out. He's not going anywhere. I told you exactly what the league's response would be. I was wrong about Dan having a response. He did respond. I didn't think he would. But I told you exactly how the league would respond. Verbatim almost. I told you they were going to say, hey, the Washington football team already has an independent investigation going on. We're going to allow that to play itself out. And once they have their findings, we'll assess that, and then we'll go from there. I told you that's what the league was going to say. They don't want anything to do with this. They're going to take a passive-aggressive approach on this thing and allow this situation to play itself out. They don't want to do anything here. And so if it's not something major, it's not going to be enough to get Dan out of here. So thank you for the super chat, Rob. Got another super chat. This one from Jordan Like the GOAT. Thank you for the super chat, Jordan Like the GOAT. Greatly appreciate you. Jordan writes, I think the minority owners are behind the WAPO stories. And if they are, we're going to continue to deal with these issues. They could be. At this point, I'm not shocked by anything, any narrative or any conspiracy theory that people may have. Hell, Dan has his own conspiracy theory about the rumors that were running rampant the first time when the article came out back in July about the 15 women who first came on the scene talking about the sexual misconduct and mistreatment while working for the organization. And I don't really know who to believe, who's behind what. At the end of the day, I'm not looking to speculate. I'm just going to take everything at face value. Whatever I read, I'm just going to go with it. I'm one of those people. I take everything with a grain of salt, especially when you're dealing with people with ulterior motives. Obviously, the guy that owns the paper is a guy that would love to get into the NFL owner business. And so there's that whole dynamic there. But then there's also the minority owners who want out. But they don't just want out. They want Dan to sell too. Because they can't get, and I talked about this yesterday, they can't get the amount that they're looking for. They can't get the value, all right, market value out of this 40% stake that they hold in the organization, because no one wants to pay the kind of money that they're seeking for their shares to be under Daniel Snyder. So they want Dan to sell as well so they can maximize the amount that they sell their shares for and get out of this thing. So they could be behind it. If Dan is forced to sell, they don't care how it happens, whether Dan is forced to sell or he decides to do it on his own volition. They don't care. They just want him to sell so they can get the hell out of Dodge. So at this point, I wouldn't be shocked if they were behind it either. Again, I'm not going to assume, because I'm going to be brutally honest with you. I really don't care. I'm just going to, because I know this isn't going to be enough. All right? Unless you show me the smoking gun. Unless I'm watching Daniel Snyder pull the trigger and I see the smoking gun in his hand and I watched him complete the act. Unless somebody tells me they got not only the smoking gun, but they picked up the projectile as well, and they got all the evidence that they need to get him out of here. I don't care about any of this stuff because it's not going to do anything. The league has already shown you that they're not going to get him out of there unless it's something uber egregious. And what I started thinking about when this all went down was the whole Donald Sterling situation in the NBA, and how the NBA owners didn't even want him to be ousted because they said, if we get rid of him, it's a slippery slope. What happens? Because all of these guys got skeletons in their closets, and that's essentially what it boils down to. We heard about the Woody Johnson story about how he was treating women overseas and how, look, every one of these owners, most likely, I won't lump them all together. Some of them are probably good guys, but most of them, I'd say 85-90% of these owners have skeletons in their closet. And they're like, if we expose his skeletons, who's to say that someone won't come after us and expose our skeletons in our closet? So a lot of these owners don't want to see other owners pushed out. So it's going to have to be something egregious. And I just don't see Daniel Snyder getting entangled in any of that stuff now. I think the worst of the past has already been exposed. I don't think he's going to do anything stupid moving forward. So I'm off that train. We had our one shot and we missed it the first time the article came out. That's when I was my most excited. That's when I was my most hopeful. And I saw where that went and I realized we got nothing. So I'm not worried about Daniel Snyder out as owner. I don't care about that. Even though I understand that the likelihood of this team having sustained success is slim to none with Daniel Snyder as owner, I'm going to take my chances because what else do I have? I don't have any other choice. So I'm not going to cry over spilt milk. What I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on this team, focus on Ron Rivera, Kyle Smith, and the guys who are in charge of getting players on this roster and coaching them up, and hope that they're able to do a good enough job that we can rise above the noise and somehow overcome all of the dysfunction that always seems to surround this organization. That's the only hope as fans that we have. Daniel Snyder's not going anywhere. There's always going to be turmoil. They're going, and until those, as you mentioned, those minority owners are finally able to sell their shares, this could continue to be a battle that they're fighting to try to get out. And it could be a mess. And it could be a bunch of mudslinging going on. And at the end of the day, as fans, we really don't want much to do with that stuff. We want the product on the field. And we want it to be better because it hasn't been good enough. So all we can ask for is that Ron and company are able to turn this thing around sooner rather than later. And I can tell you this much. My expectations for this season are extremely low, as should yours. I'm not going to tell you what you should feel. I'm just telling you. Don't look for, 10-6 this year. All right. If it happens, whoop did he do? I'd be excited just like the next man, but I'm not looking for that. All right. I've said this as a Washington football fan for a long time, and a lot of you can attest to this. I hope for the best, expect the worst going into just about every situation with this team and every game almost to this point now. All right. Until they change and rewire my brain to where I'm not going in hopeful but really expecting the worst, that's where I stand. And so this season is no different. I'm hoping for 10-6. I'm hoping for 9-7, 8-8. I'm hoping for meaningful football. I told you every year, these are such low standards. I feel bad sometimes even regurgitating this because as a fan, you shouldn't feel this way going into a season. But we feel this way. I can't speak for you. I feel this way far too often. But really, I go into every season just begging the team to play meaningful football in November. You know how bad that is? There's 4 games in September, more likely than not, unless you have an early bye week. There's another 3 or 4 in October. You probably have your bye in October or November. And so there's 3 or 4 more games in October. And then you get to November. And you've probably played 8 games maximum, 7 games minimum by the time you get to October or November, excuse me. And here I am begging the team every year to just get to November playing meaningful football. Essentially what I'm saying is, can we get through half of the schedule and still not be dead yet? That's a shame. But that's where I've been with this organization for the last decade, really, since Joe Gibbs 2.0. I essentially have been at that point. We had the one magical season in 2012. We had 2015 and 2016, but that's essentially it. I've pretty much been begging the team to just get me to November playing meaningful football. And that's all I'm going to do this year is just ask the boys to have meaningful games in November. That would be really cool. Because Rivera has already said that he expects this team to get better as the season progresses. The problem is we may not see that true improvement until week 9, and at that point we might already be 2-7. We might already be 2-6 and dead as a doornail. Okay? So, I don't know. At the end of the day, that's what I usually hope for. That's usually what I ask for. And it's not much, but it beats poor. So, I said all of that to say this. We can only hope that this thing gets turned around. And I just caution you out there, if you're one of these glass always full to the brim fans, and your cup is overrunneth with excitement and positivity, I'm just trying to get you to understand that that's not what this season is about. Even the head coach has been trying to tell you. When the man keeps telling you in these pressers that this is a 3-year, 4-year process, when he keeps talking about how the military talks about changing a culture and it's a 3 or 4 year process, when he keeps repeating this over and over, he's trying to tell you that this is no overnight fix. All right. What he's trying to explain to you is that don't look for 10-6 this year. It'd be great if it came, but look more for 6-10, but vastly improving throughout the course of the season to the point where you have hope for 2021. That's where I stand. All right. So we'll see what happens. But anyway, I digress. Thank you for the super chat, Jordan Light the GOAT. I can tell you this much. I don't know if the minority owners are behind it or not. I can just say that at this point, I really could care less. I really could care less at the end of the day. We'll see what happens. Rob, thank you for doubling up. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, Rob. Greatly appreciate you. As always, my man Rob writes, Lou, there is a lot of hype around the D-line, and I feel Daron Payne is really going to impress this year. Rob, a lot of people keep singing the praises of Daron Payne. You know how I feel about Daron Payne. Haven't been the biggest Daron Payne fan. I think the guy's uber talented, but there are a lot of people out there that think this guy is ridiculously talented, so much so that he could be one of the top interior defensive linemen in the league. I just don't see it. I don't see a guy that's bagging the quarterback, 8 to 12 times a year. I don't see a guy that is going to make a bunch of plays that, my eyes are about to pop out of my head. I could be wrong, and I hope I'm wrong. I've seen flashes from Daron Payne, but I haven't seen enough of them to the point where I'm ready to jump on board like everybody else. But here's the beautiful thing about Daron Payne, Jonathan Allen, and the rest of these guys is that they were being misused, especially the Bama boys. They were used to being one-gap penetrators. They get here, and Jim Tomsula had them two-gapping. That's not what these guys are about. These guys should be up the field, penetrating, blowing shit up. And Daron Payne is going to get an opportunity to do that. He's got talent all around him now, as do everyone else along this defensive line. Doesn't matter where you are on the line, whether you're at left end, right end, 1 tech, 3 tech, you got talent all around you at this point now. So there's no excuse. You're going to get a lot of one-on-one matchups. You're going to get a lot of situations where you're mano a mano, guy in front of you, just whoop his ass. If you're that good, as everyone keeps talking about, beat him. And we're going to see. We're going to see just how good Daron Payne is. We're going to see just how good Jonathan Allen is. Because Matt Ioannidis, to me, is still the best out of the group right now. He's the most productive out of the group. He's the guy that flashed the most in these past 3 years. He's the guy that every game you walk out of, you say, man, Matt Ioannidis is damn impressive. Whether he's two-gapping, one-gapping, or getting after the quarterback, Matt Ioannidis has been the guy that's been the most impressive. But he's not the one that's the most talented. But talent doesn't always, manifest itself into production. So I want production. I'm sick of talking about how talented this front 7 is or this front 4 is. I'm looking for production. And I think, Chase Young is the guy that's going to put this group over the top. I'm bullish on this defensive line. I've already said it. I think we're going to lead the league in sacks. I know that sounds crazy, but I don't care. That's how bullish I am on this group. I think Montez Sweat he's due for a breakout year. I feel it coming. I think Chase Young is going to have a monster year as well. And I think those interior guys are just going to add to the mix, and you're going to look up, and we got 59.5. We got 63.5 sacks on this season. And I'm looking forward to seeing that happen. But there's a lot of hype around this defensive line, and for good reason. You spend that many first-round picks on your defensive line, and you expect dividends. And really, I don't want to go with the whole 49er narrative because I think we've beaten that horse dead. We're not the 49ers. We're not as far along in the process as they were when they got Nick Bosa last year. But what I do think we can do is have that kind of jump defensively. I don't think offensively we're going to be where they were, which is what got them to the Super Bowl. Yeah, they were dominant defensively, but they were also excellent offensively. And yeah, Kyle has a lot to do with that. You know how I feel about Kyle Shanahan as an offensive mind in this league. However, I think that's what's going to hold us back. We're going to be in ball games because of this defense. I think, again, the secondary is still a massive question mark. Don't allow training camp to get you excited about this secondary. We got a lot of question marks in that secondary. Troy Apke is still a massive question mark. The cornerback position, still a massive question mark. I don't know who's starting opposite of Kendall Fuller right now. Thad Moreau just injured himself. Don't know when he's going to be back. They've been touting Ronald Darby this entire camp. He may be the starter across from Kendall Fuller. Who's going to play the nickel when Fuller isn't in the nickel? Is it going to be Jimmy? Is he ready to take on that task? Is it going to be Aaron Colvin, a wily vet that used to be one of the better nickels in the league before he hit falling on hard times? I don't know. These are all the answers that we don't have at this point, which it still makes me somewhat nervous and apprehensive to just start talking about how good this defense is going to be. But I can assure you of this. This defense will only go as far as the front four will take them. Everything else will fall into place if the front four is as advertised. If they're playing subpar football, this defense is going to struggle. And remember, for as talented as this front was last year, we still didn't stop the run very well. Now, again, when you're two-gapping, I don't put that on the defensive line. I put that on the linebackers. But it is also the job of the defensive linemen to hold up those offensive linemen and not allow them to climb to the second level to get to those linebackers. But when your linebackers aren't aggressive, aren't athletic, and aren't instinctual, it's a lot easier for those guys to get to the second level and get to those backers and potentially get to the safety and open up gaping holes in the run game. I just look for this defense to be all around better. Running-wise, stopping the run, pass-wise, defending the pass, I expect them to be better in all facets, and it starts up front with the defensive line, and we're hoping a guy like Daron Payne takes that next step as well. Thank you for the super chat, Rob. You got another super chat. This one is from JP, my man John Perez. Thank you for the super chat, John. Greatly appreciate you. JP writes, I think, like you said yesterday, if another one of these Washington Post article comes to light down the road, we could see Snyder pushed out. I don't think that's happening either. Again, the article would have to be so damning. I'm talking about Daniel Snyder has to essentially solicit sex from one of these cheerleaders or one of these ex-employees. Daniel Snyder has to do something so disgraceful that the league says, we can't have this guy owning one of the franchises in this league. It's really giving us a black eye. We're not at that point, and I don't anticipate us getting to that point. Now, I'm not saying Dan won't step on a landmine down the road, but I just don't see it. I don't see the Washington Post getting any kind of information that's going to lead to the departure of Daniel Snyder, unwillingly, I might add. The only way I see Daniel Snyder leaving is on his own volition, and I told you guys this. I don't see him doing that. I don't see Daniel Snyder selling his team. Some people have said they think he might ultimately decide to sell because there's so much money involved. I don't think that's something that even has crossed his mind to this point. I think he wants to own his team. It's a part of who he is. I think he wants to stick it to everyone. He's no dummy. He's insulated in his little bubble, but he still understands that everyone thinks that he can't win. And he would love nothing more than to hoist the Lombardi at some point, and be able to say, you know what? F all of you who thought I couldn't do this. Like, he wants that so bad. He probably goes to sleep at night dreaming about that. Being able to stick his middle finger up at everybody by holding up a Lombardi trophy. And so, I don't know if that's ever going to happen. I'd like to see it happen, obviously, but I don't think he's looking to sell. Period. So, I'm not anticipating him being forced out. And I don't anticipate him selling. I don't think the money is an issue. I don't think he's looking at that money and saying, oh my God, I can make X amount of dollars. I think he's very comfortable where he is with this organization and the money that's coming in from this team and the evaluations that he gets. He understands that anytime he could sell if he wants. I don't think he's looking to do that. I don't think he's looking to move this team at all whatsoever. So at the end of the day, I don't think another Washington Post article is going to do it. Let's go back to the beginning, the first Post article. That one had nothing in it in terms of Daniel Snyder himself being implicated. This last one did. A couple of stories, that had, and again, it's a lot of it is hearsay because you can't really confirm a lot of this stuff. But this one did have some assertions, some claims with Daniel Snyder attached to them. If the next one ramps it up a bit and it becomes a little bit more ironclad and he's more involved, yeah, then we could come back to the table and discuss it then. But again, I don't see that happening. I don't know how many more bullets the Washington Post or any other news outlet for that matter could possibly have in their arsenal. I just don't think there are any more bullets left in the clip. There may be one left in the chamber. But I don't know how potent that one bullet is. I just don't think that there's anything left that can be said about Daniel Snyder. And at this point, I'm going to be honest, I don't care. Because I don't get wrapped up in things that I don't have any control over. And so we don't have any control over this. Only thing we can control as fans is how we root for the team. That's it. And we don't have any control over Daniel Snyder owning his team moving forward or any of that stuff. All I want to do is focus on rooting for my favorite football team. That's it. That's all I want to focus on. So, when these stories come out, I do it, and I talk about them because it's my duty as I don't want to call myself a news outlet because that's not what I do. But I provide you guys with the information and I let you do what you want with it. So, Daniel Snyder not being the owner of this football team, I honestly don't care at this point. That ship sailed with me after the first article. Remember how excited I was? I dressed in all white. I felt like we were going to be reborn. I was like, man, feels like we are about to experience a rebirth as fans. We're getting something that I never thought we were getting. And I got so excited. And in typical Washington football team fashion, I was let down in epic fashion. And I know better. And I still fell for the old banana in the tailpipe. I felt like Tom on Tom and Jerry. Like, you know what's coming. You're going to get the mouse trap on the tail. And you're going to get, the whole slipping on, running around a corner and smacking into a rake that's laying on the ground. And then walking back into a shovel that hits you. Like, these things are coming. You're going to walk up to Spike and think that Spike can't get to you because you drew a line in the sand only to find out that Spike, they've moved his dog house up and he can get to you now. Like, these things are coming. And you still fall for them like a dumbass anyway. And I fell for the damn banana in the tailpipe, man. I fell for the damn banana in the tailpipe last time. I won't fall for it again. So you know what I've done? I've turned that switch off. I don't give a shit. Dan can own the team. I just want to win. Dan can own the team. Like, I know there are some people out there. This is the thing that's crazy to me. And we've had this discussion in somewhat of a different capacity when talking about Dwayne Haskins, where there are some sectors of the fan base that rather see this team lose because of Dwayne Haskins so they can be right about Haskins than see this team win with Haskins and flourish with him and be wrong. There are some fans out there, which this is asinine to me because this man hasn't done anything specifically to you individually as a fan base. Yes, he's destroyed our favorite team. Okay, I get that. However, there are some fans out there that would rather see this team lose and never ever see us win a Super Bowl as long as Daniel Snyder is owner. Like, that is the most asinine thing ever. What are you a fan for if you don't want this team to win because of the owner? I understand that you may not like this man, and I can't tell you to like him or not like him. I could give two shits whether you like him or you don't like him. I told you I don't know him personally. As a NFL owner, I despise Daniel Snyder. But that doesn't stop me from rooting for my team, and that's damn sure not going to stop me from hoping this team wins a Super Bowl. While he's the owner or while he's not the owner, I could give a shit. I just want this team to win. Whether he's the owner or not, I could care less. But there are some people out there that don't want this team to win until he's no longer the owner. Well, guess what? You might as well find a brand new team. Because as far as I'm concerned, he's not going anywhere. And he's in relatively good health. And he's only 55 years old. I don't see this man going anywhere for the foreseeable future. So either you're going to quit being a Washington football team fan, you're going to be a Fairweather fan, or you're going to root for another team. Whatever the case may be, I've said all of that to say this. I could care less about Daniel Snyder being out owner. I just want to win. That's it. I just want to be 10-4 at the midpoint of December with a massive game against the Cowboys coming up on the schedule that's must-see TV. Not just for us or Cowboys fans, but for the entire National Football League to watch on a Sunday afternoon or a Sunday night. I want it to be the 10-4 Washington football team versus the, 9-5 Dallas Cowboys. Winner of this game is outright in first place of the division. That's what I want. That's what I want. So, anyway, I digress. Thank you for the super chat, JP. Got another super chat. This one from Extra Squad. Thank you for the super chat, Extra Squad. Greatly appreciate you. Extra writes, I think you are sleeping on the chances Snyder sells. These minority owners will keep firing at him to the point where his reputation is unbearable. He'll just keep suing. I think you are underestimating just how petty Daniel Snyder can be. This is the same guy that tried to sue a small-time newspaper for what he thought was anti-Semitic jabs at him. When they put devil horns on him and things of that nature. Look, this guy is extremely petty. Extremely petty. Do you really think that this guy is going to just fold under the pressure of guys that all of a sudden he probably doesn't like nor respect anymore? No way. He's going to dig his heels into the dirt even further and deeper. This is only fueling his fire even more. Okay? This only makes him want to win further. They can squeeze off as much as they like at Daniel Snyder. As long as he owns the majority of the team, which he does, he's pulling all of the strings. And his whole mindset is, you don't like it, get out. Oh, you can't get out? Too bad. Not my problem. He doesn't care about those guys and what they want to do. If they want to sell, go ahead and sell. If you want to sell that bad, sell it for below market value. Otherwise, leave me the hell alone and get out of my face. You want to keep spreading rumors about me? Fine, I'll sue you. If I feel like it's slander and it's libel, I will sue you. All right? So, I'm just telling you, the man is incredibly petty, and he's also incredibly, I want to say, competitive isn't the right word, but he's a guy that is vindictive enough to say, you know what? Don't worry about it. I'll keep trying until I win. And when I finally do win, that'll be my middle finger to everyone. So I understand where you're coming from. I'm just telling you, I just don't think I think you guys are underestimating how bad Daniel Snyder wants this. And when I say this, I'm talking about this team. And I've never been one of these people that thinks that Daniel Snyder doesn't want to win. I just don't think he knows how to go about winning. I think that's the problem. I think he wants to win. Now, does he want to win more than making money? That's a debatable topic. You know, that's a different story for another day. All right. However, I don't doubt that the man wants to win. There are some owners where you're like, hey, they could probably care less about winning. I think he actually wants to win. He just doesn't know how to go about it. That's his biggest problem. So I don't think this is a wanting to win issue. I think he wants to win. And I think they're making him want to win even worse now with the way that they're carrying on. He wants to stick it to everybody. So, and the way to do that is to win. So I hear what you're saying. I just don't think he's going to sell. I don't think anything the minority owners are doing is going to force this guy to sell or make him feel like he needs to sell anything. But we'll see. Thank you for the super chat, Extra Squaw. Got another super chat. This one from my man, Derek B. Thank you for the super chat, Derek B. Feels like it's been a long time, man. You might have been lurking, but it's always good to hear from you, Derek B. Thank you for the super chat. Derek writes, WTF with WFT. The W logo looks great so for 2020, and with Ron's plan, I'm calling them the Dubs. Be all about the dub life. Dub U for TDs. Dubs get the dub. Lovable Dubs. Hail to the Dubs. HTTD. I like the W as well. I think it's something that can grow on a lot of people, but this is the problem. If you're too fond of everything this year, they're just going to keep it the way that it is, which is what we don't want. Like I said, even with the new logo and a new nickname and even a tweak to the uniform here or there, that W can still exist. You know, even with the old, when we were the Redskins. What a novel concept. We had multiple alternative logos that the team could use. You know, so I feel like, you know, because we had the R that we could use. We had obviously the Indian logo. At times you would see the arrow. So there were multiple ways to, you know, show that it was the Redskins that you were referring to. And the same thing could be said for whatever they decide to do. This W can still exist, even if they are the Red Wolves or, you know, the Red Tails or whatever they decide on. But I just don't want it to be the Washington football team. I'm getting tired of saying that already. But I'm all about Dubs too, man. Last year was so hard for me because I told you, I hate when fans talk about tanking and losing on purpose. Like, that goes against everything that I was taught as a kid. That goes against everything that I stand for. It goes against everything in my being. It took every fiber in my body last year to root against this team and do it without pulling the little hair that I have left out. Like, I just, every Sunday that I sit down in front of the television, even though I don't think we have a shot and I know we're not supposed to win, I convince myself otherwise at 1:00 p.m. when I sit down in front of my television on Sunday afternoons in the fall. I convince myself every time, even though I know this should be an ass whooping of epic proportions. Last year, I mean, think about this. I sat down in front of my television last year when I knew it was a kamikaze mission. There was no way we were beating the Patriots. This was Jay Gruden's last game as our coach. We knew that going in. He was starting Colt McCoy, for God's sake. This was his way of saying, I know I'm on my deathbed, but if I'm going out with my last meal and I'm going out with my last smoke with my guy. All right, I know I'm going to death row in a second, so I'm going to get the best meal I can get. I'm going to get me the best cigarette I can get, and I'm going to enjoy this because this is it. And I knew that, and I still sat down and I said, why we can't beat the Patriots today, man? Why we can't find? And when Steven Sims bust off that long run for the touchdown and we went up 7-0, I was like, why the hell we can't be? And remember, that score was 7-0 late into the first quarter, maybe even early second quarter. We might have been up on these boys 7-0. We was clinging to that lead for a while, and then the dam broke. And I said, typical, Washington Redskins. But that's how I am. And so I'm all about the dubs, man. I want to win. I just don't think that's happening this year. But I'm all about that dub life, man. I like it. I don't know if the HTTD is something that rolls off the tongue quite yet, but it ends in TD, man. Nothing wrong with scoring a touchdown, right? So I don't know. I guess I do like the W logo, though. I'm with you on that. I do like that W. It's starting to grow on me. So thank you for the super chat, Derek B. Greatly appreciated. Got another super chat. This one from Redskins Bay 12th Man. Thank you for the super chat, Redskins Bay 12th Man. Greatly appreciate you. Redskins Bay 12th Man writes, evening, BL. These them type of seasons where we end up winning with a legit head coach. But like you, I'm just hoping to compete, be consistent, and don't take any games or quarters off. And I think that's honestly all you should be hoping for as a fan, is that you see the type of fight in this team week in and week out that we lacked under the last regime. There were games where we would come out and we would look like a team that belonged. And then there were quarters, there were halves, and there were games when we just looked like we were ill-prepared and didn't belong on the same field with the team that we were playing against. And that was the problem. That was the mark of the Jay Gruden era here in Washington, was that, that first half versus the Eagles, minus the last 2 minutes where we gave up that stupid touchdown to Deshaun Jackson, that was a masterpiece. We came out and we shocked the NFL world. We shocked the Eagles. And hell, they shocked us as fans because we didn't expect that. I mean, Case Keenum was dealing out there. We were dominating them. Big plays. We're scoring touchdowns. We're not settling for field goals. And we're thinking to ourselves, well, hell, let's go have ourselves a season, why don't we? And then the second half happened, and the faucet went completely off, and we couldn't stop the Eagles, and that was essentially all she wrote. And that was the problem with this team under Jay Gruden. We'd have games where we'd show up and we'd play big, like early in 2017, when we beat the Chiefs, or we beat the Raiders up. I mean, we beat the Raiders good. No, that was 2016, I believe. I think it was 2017. We started out really well in 2017. And then the wheels fell off in 2017. But we started out 3-1, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was 3-1. We beat the Rams on the road in week 2. We beat the brakes off the Raiders. No, we were 2-1. That's what it was. We didn't start 3-1. We started 2-1. Had that Sunday night game against the Raiders, and we looked spectacular. And that's what I was talking about. And in the first half of that Chiefs game, we were outstanding. Actually, I thought we fell asleep in the third quarter of that Chiefs game, but we woke up late stages of the fourth, and we had a shot. But inconsistent that year. Injuries also took effect. Obviously, that Chiefs game was the last time we were really healthy, but that's neither here nor there. That was the problem, was consistency. That's what I'm looking for with Ron, no matter who's on the field. Discipline, consistency, effort. Those are things that I'm looking for. That's the mark, the hallmark of a Ron Rivera coached ball club, and that's what I'm looking for him to bring here. And as long as we have that, we'll have a shot. And Rivera has said this himself. This is one of the more talented secondaries, he said, which is interesting because when I look back at Carolina, they didn't really ever have a dominant secondary. So he's right in saying that this may be the most talented secondary he's ever coached. Because there's a lot of talented guys back there, but talent, and I said this earlier, talent doesn't always equal to production. I've seen many of talented guys come through this league and not cut it and be gone after 2 or 3 years in this league, never to be heard from or seen again. Just because you're talented doesn't mean you're going to produce at a high level. But we have talent. Ronald Darby was a really good corner early in his NFL career before the injury started to take effect. If he's healthy and he's focused, Ronald Darby can be a good football player. Fab Moreau is a guy that had first-round talent. If not for the torn pec muscle, he probably gets drafted in the first round. We get him in the third round. This is an uber-talented football player. Kendall Fuller, we know the talent that is Kendall Fuller. All right? So we know that this guy is fully capable. You know, we know what Landon Collins is as a football player. All right? We know that Troy Apke has elite athleticism. Does that translate to elite production? We will see. Sean Davis, another guy with really good size and athleticism for the position. Does that actually equate to production? I don't know. Okay? But there's talent on this team. Jimmy Moreland is a talented cornerback. Okay? But can you get this talent to actually provide production for you is the question. That's the answers that we're waiting on right now. And so I just want to see this staff, Ron Rivera, Jack Del Rio and company, get the most out of what we have. And if the most they can squeeze out of this roster this year is 7 wins, I'll be really excited about that. I really would be. I know some of you are like, dude, 7 isn't cutting it. I hear you, but I'm looking at this football team and where we are in our development and how young we are and how we've got a lot of different positional battles and how we're just trying to figure things out. We're so green, man. It's a lot of things that this team just doesn't know right now, and it's hard to win when you don't know. They're trying to learn. And so they're going to be games that we're going to lose this year. We're going to be in the ball game, but we just don't know how to win. And that's what you're hoping to, go through the growing pains of this year so that next year, those same games, when you're in those same situations, you can kind of harken back to, remember when we were in this similar situation last year? This is how you get it done. We didn't do it last year, but this is how you do it now. And that's how you win ball games. And so that's how you grow as a team, and that's what I'm looking for. So thank you for the super chat. Redskins Bay 12th man. Got another super chat. This one is from Rob U. Thank you for the super chat, Rob U. Thank you for tripling up. Greatly appreciate you, Rob U. As always, Rob writes, is Jimmy Moreland hype legit? I think it is. I told you how excited I was about Jimmy Moreland as a 7th round pick out of JMU 2 years ago. So when I looked at that, and I don't get really excited about 7th round picks because they're usually Ted Bolsters. Okay, you remember him, tight end out of Indiana some years ago in the 7th round. That's usually what you get in the 7th round. All right, it's Ted Bolsters. You usually don't get guys that you actually feel like can either make your team, or if they actually do make your team, actually be key contributors. I think we may actually have one of those guys here in Jimmy Moreland. And Ron likes him. I like him. Now it's just, again, it ain't about liking a guy. It's about him producing. It's about Jimmy getting opportunities this year. And he was young and he was green and he was wet behind the ears. His breath smelled like Similac last year. All of these things were to be expected. You go from James Madison to the big leagues, and it's a humongous jump. All right, and it's actually a shock to the senses. And everybody's faster, everybody's bigger. The game has changed, and he had to adjust. And it took him a little while, but he started to make that adjustment, and he started to turn the corner, and then he got injured. I'm anxious to see Jimmy out there this year. I really think he's ready to take that step, and I'll take it a step further too. I think last year another thing was they were hell-bent on forcing Jimmy inside. Oh, he's small. He can't play out wide. Let's stick him inside. And everybody's not made for the slot. We've talked about that before. I think Jimmy's one of those dudes that wants to play on the outside. I want to see where they're playing Jimmy. That's going to be interesting to see because I haven't really gotten a sense from, practice where guys are being played. But as the DB coach, Chris Harris, has stated, everybody is eligible to play everywhere. And he said, we're DBs, meaning we can play everywhere. Out wide, in the slot, safety, in the box, back deep. He wants all of his players to be interchangeable. That's unrealistic, but I understand the message that he's trying to get across to his players. That I'm not pigeonholing any of you. I'm not putting any of you in a box. I just want to see what you can do. And hopefully you got to know what everybody's responsibility is. And that's how the smart teams do it. You have your players know what everybody around them is supposed to be doing, because it's a lot easier for you to know where your help is or what you can and can't get away with on a particular play call, because you know what everybody's responsibility is. If you're just worried about what you have to do and you're not understanding what the defense is calling for and what that guy has to do and how you reacting to this route and in combination to what that guy has as a responsibility or what the guy opposite of you has as a responsibility. Because if you don't have anybody on your side and you're supposed to be the deepest on your side, but there's no traffic, but that the guy on the opposite side of you is playing the same coverage as you and they're running a post, then you can get back and sag over top of that post and come on the other side and pick it off, or at least knock it away. And so, again, you got to know what everybody else is doing, because maybe that safety has already communicated to you, hey, I'm going to come up and I'm going to try to be a robber on this play. If they run something over the middle, I'm coming up. You got to have my back. So these are the types of things where the communication comes into play and guys got to know what they're doing. And I think Jimmy Moreland is a guy that last year, everything was just moving too fast for him. Everything was moving fast, including the players on the field. The game had sped up. And I think everything's going to slow down for him. He's going to understand. And I think all of these guys in the secondary are going to be put in better positions to succeed because of the defense that we're going to be in this year. That's pretty much going to keep everything in front of you. So as long as everybody remains disciplined, there shouldn't be many 77-yard daggers on us. There should be methodical drives, but you're hoping that the defense is good enough to find a way to get off the field on 3rd and 4, or 3rd and 6, or 3rd and 7, or 3rd and 9, or 3rd and 11. You hope they're good enough when they get to 3rd down, they can find a way off the field, which hasn't been something we've been able to do, whether it was Joe Barry or Greg Bonuski, or hell, even going back to Jim Haslett. We've seemed to struggle on 3rd downs quite often in these parts, around these parts. So hopefully this changes under Jack Del Rio and company. But I think Jimmy Moreland has a chance to be a really good corner. He's one of those guys that I'm looking forward to seeing this year. There's a lot of these second-year guys that I'm just looking to see what they're going to do in their sophomore campaign. And he's one of those guys that I'm really looking forward to seeing how he adjusts to the game now that he's been in it for a year. Thank you for the super chat, Rob U. Thank you again, Rob U, for the super chat. And like I said, really appreciate you, Rob U, who writes, is Sean Davis that bad, or has Troy Apke made that big of a leap? It's probably a combination of the two, but I think it's more about Troy Apke, less about Sean Davis. I think, remember, they gave Sean Davis a solid contract, a 1-year deal, but it wasn't the kind that suggests he has he has to start. There was nothing in that contract that immediately made him the starter. I think they looked at Troy Apke's skill set. They said, look, man, this guy's a 4'3", 40 guy. He's got good size. He's got physicality. He hustles. He's got everything that we're looking for to play on this defense. Let's give him a try. And I think he's one of those guys that just needed somebody to believe in him. That was, I think, one of his biggest problems was that he felt like, I'm not getting an opportunity, and he didn't think he was ever going to get that opportunity. And a lot of times, and I've heard players say this, and I've told you guys this much before, that it comes down, and if you've ever played sports at a high level, in high school is a high enough level for you to be able to encounter this and understand it. It's about confidence. If you're confident that you can get it done, if you're confident in your abilities, and you know that you can play amongst your peers and you're just as good, if not better, then you're going to go out and you're going to dominate, or you're going to play up to your capabilities. You're going to play your best. But if you don't think you're good enough, if you feel like you're outmatched and overmatched and outclassed, you're going to shrink. And I think he felt like, I'm overmatched and I'm outclassed, and I don't know if I'm ever going to get an opportunity. And this new regime came in and said, dude, you're talented. Now you just got to put it on the field and put it into motion. And, Rivera talked about Apke, and he said, look, he's got all the physical tools you're looking for. He just has to figure out how to get there, how to take proper angles, to understand and diagnose what he's seeing, react faster, and play faster. The less he thinks, the faster he can play. That's any player on the field. That's why I think Jimmy Moreland has a chance to be better this year. Less thinking, more playing. Now you've been in the league a year. You're a year wiser. You've seen route concepts and combinations before. You know what the offense is trying to do to you. You can respond and react faster now. Apke may be in that position now where he's gaining confidence and he knows he's got a coaching staff that believes in him. And you can't begin to understand what that does to a player's psyche when he understands that these guys actually believe in me. They think I can get it done. So I think it's it's more Troy Apke getting the opportunity and taking advantage of that and making the most of it. And I think it's less of Sean Davis just not being very good. I think Sean Davis is solid, but I told you when we signed him that Sean Davis was an enigma, and that I didn't expect him to come in and set the world on fire. But I think it is a situation where it provides us with more depth. If Apke is decent, it gives us depth. If something were to happen to him or Landon Collins, it gives us more options, because in the past we didn't have many options at safety. As soon as Monte Nicholson went down, it's straight to DeShazer Everett, and DeShazer, bless his heart, seems like every time he gets in there, he gets hurt. And we see DeShazer in for a little while, and then he's banged up, and next thing you know, all hell breaks loose at safety. So we'll see what happens. But I think Troy Apke is taking advantage of this opportunity. I think it's more of Apke, less of Sean Davis. Thank you for that super chat, Rob. You got another super chat from JP. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, JP. Greatly appreciate you. JP writes, as I've said all offseason, Dwayne Haskins is going to quiet a lot of people this year with his play, but that O-line must protect him. They actually haven't been terrible in camp. They've actually been pretty solid. They had that one day where they weren't very good, and that's because it was Vets Day. It was Veterans Day. And they allowed, again, I don't understand why Jaron Christian got the day off, but he did. And so did Morgan Moses and Brandon Sheriff. And so you're talking about 3/5 of your offensive line not out there on the field. And it was a train wreck, as it should be when 3/5 of your offensive line isn't present, your starting offensive line. So they've been really good. Dwayne has had protection for the most part throughout camp. I know a lot of the clips that I've watched and a lot of the photos that I've looked at, he's had a pretty solid pocket to throw from. Now, again, how hard are these guys going? They understand that, the quarterback's got a yellow jersey on. You're not supposed to contact him. I don't know. I can't say. I think they're trying to whoop ass out there on the defensive line. I don't think they're taking it easy on those guys because they know they can't hit the quarterback. So I think they've been doing a pretty good job. I think we're going to be fine. I've said this all along. I know a lot of you are worried about the offensive line, and I totally get it. And you have every right to be a little apprehensive about this offensive line, and you should have questions. I, however, am erring on the side of glass half full and being optimistic, and I'm just going to go out on a limb and say that this offensive line is going to be just fine this year. I told you, I think the right side of the offensive line is going to have a bounce back year, and Sheriff and Moses, I think they're going to be really good this year, and they're going to stay healthy. All right. I like Chase Roulier. I've always liked Chase Roulier. I think we're going to be fine there. And I think Wes Martin is going to get his shit together at left guard. And, the one question mark is Jaron Christian. And we're going to talk about him a little bit later in the program. as he stepped to the podium for the first time ever. I can't remember ever hearing from Jaron Christian, and really there was no reason to. And I thought he had some really interesting things to say. If you haven't had a chance to listen to it, I'm going to enlighten you tonight. If you have, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. But I just think that this line is going to be fine. So I think Dwayne is going to have an opportunity to do what it is he needs to do. I just think the only thing that I'm worried about is his supporting cast. I remember, and you know what's crazy is that I didn't think Kelvin Harmon's injury would have as big an impact on the way that I viewed this receiving core, but he was vital to what we were trying to do. And because now I feel like unless Dontrell Inman, and we're going to talk about him a little bit later on too, and Antonio Gandy Golden, the Gandhi man. And I had somebody tell me that I needed to stop saying the Gandhi man. You guys tell me what you think. You want me to stop saying that? You want me to stop saying that? He said every time I say it, it makes his head hurt. I like saying it, so I don't want to stop saying it. And I'm not going to stop saying it unless you guys tell me I need to stop saying it. But anyway, it was going to allow us to bring him along at a leisurely pace in AGG. Now I feel like because of the injury to Kelvin Harmon, I find myself trying to rush AGG out there and get something out of him that he may not be ready to give us yet. And he's a rookie. You can't assume that rookies are ready to just step in and give you something. I've said this a million times. So I'm hoping that we get something out of the supporting cast around Dwayne. That's what I'm more concerned about than anything else. Is, do we have enough around him? I remember feeling really gung-ho early on in camp, or early on in the offseason rather, right before training camp, before we found out about Kelvin Harmon's injury, and how I took offense to people that talked about how we didn't do enough for Dwayne and there's not enough talent on this team. I took offense to that. Like, what? Oh, we're going to show them. We got Kelvin Harmon. We got Steven Sims. We got Terry McLaurin. We added AGG to the mix. We got all these running backs. We got Antonio Gibson, who we added to the mix. You know, Bryce Love coming back healthy. We don't got no stuff. All right, we're going to show them. And with one injury, my whole mindset has changed. Like, man, do we have enough? That was the one position, though, I didn't feel like we could afford to take a hit, was wide receiver. You know, when Geis was dismissed, I was like, hey, we good. We got enough running backs. We got backs for days. We good. I wasn't worried there. But, you know, the receiver position, we were already young, maybe a little thin, but we were definitely young. I thought we had enough stuff, but we were young. Now I'm looking and I'm saying, maybe we don't have enough stuff. So that's what I'm more worried about. Not necessarily the offensive line as much as I am, do we have enough playmakers around Dwayne to allow him to really succeed? We'll see. Because what I don't want Dwayne to do is fall into the trap of just forcing it to Terry. That's how you make mistakes. That's how you throw picks, by forcing it to one guy because you're comfortable with that guy and you don't think the other guys out there can make plays. You know, obviously there's Steven Sims, but eventually teams are going to get hip to Steven Sims. They're going to try to take him and Terry away. And then what? You know, and that's where a guy like Dontrell Inman or AGG or maybe, you know, Scott Turner's going to have to get creative, move these guys around, and not allow teams to take these players away. We'll see. But I'm not worried as much about the offensive line as some of you are. I'm more worried about the supporting cast of Dwayne Haskins, more so than I am the offensive line. Thank you for the super chat, JP. Got another super chat. This one is from, let's see. This one is from JP. Appreciate the super chat, JP. And I appreciate another super chat, JP. Greatly appreciate you, JP, who writes, my best friend is a Dirty Birds fan, and he's been talking so much crap about how the Eagles are going to beat us. We're beating those chumps this year. we're definitely going to beat the Eagles, and we're going to beat them in week 1. I had somebody tell me, I don't know if this is true or not. I can't confirm nor deny this. I didn't see it come across my timeline on Twitter, which I feel like I would have, but had a Redskins fan hit me up today, and he said, look, I'm a Redskins fan or a Washington football team fan. I'm here in the enemy territory of Pennsylvania and Philadelphia, and I'm hearing that their left tackle, Andre Dillard, tore his pec today. I don't know how true that is. I hope he's not injured, and I told him I hope he's healthy. I don't want any excuses when we beat them week 1. However, if he is in fact injured and cannot go week 1, all the Eagles are going to do is slide Jason Peters back outside. This is why they have that insurance policy. It's a great insurance policy to have, really. They've got State Farm. Seriously, they've got some real top-notch insurance there where they can just say, hey, Jason, I didn't want to do this. We wanted you to play guard this year, but go ahead and slide back outside the left tackle. Insert new right guard, keep it moving. Or excuse me, insert new left guard, keep it moving. And that's essentially what they're going to do. And I was really looking forward to running circles around Andre Dillard, but, because the old fella still seems to find a way to get it done. So, I don't know. We'll see. Bottom line is, we're beating the Eagles. And you know what? I feel we're going to beat the Eagles even more so now than I did 2 weeks ago or a week ago when we found out Ron had cancer. They're going to want to win that game. Now, and my whole thought process was they're going to want to win the game for Ron. It's his first game as Washington football team head coach. They're going to want to go get that game for Ron. Get it out of the way and be able to give him the game ball afterwards. Do you understand the significance of the game now that he has cancer? Who knows where he'll be in, his process with the treatment or what may have you then. Maybe he hadn't been feeling well all week, but he's able to coach on Sunday. Maybe he's not even able to coach on Sunday. Maybe he is able to coach on Sunday. Hasn't had any ill effects, and everything's fine. They're still going to want to win that game for Coach Rivera. So, in my mind, the Eagles are doomed week 1. I don't care what they think is going to happen. I don't care what they bring to the table. We're going to find a way to win that game. All right. There aren't many games I'm sure of this season. Week 1 versus the Eagles is one of them. I feel very confident that the fellas are going to show up week 1, and they're going to give a lot of you false confidence. Okay? False confidence. False hope moving forward. I'm not falling for the banana in the tailpipe because when I told you we were going 6-10, I predicted that we were going to beat the Eagles. I have not moved nor wavered off of that week 1 prediction. We're going to beat the Eagles, and we're going to do it for Ron. And that's all a part of Ron's plan. Ron's plan. Okay? We're beating the Eagles. So, let your friend continue to talk trash, but just know that you'll get the last laugh after week 1. Thank you for the super chat, JP. Got another super chat. This one from Gally Sanford. Thank you for the super chat, Gally Sanford. As always, greatly appreciate you, Gally. Always holding me down. Thank you so much. Gally writes, wanted to show some support to the family. Hope everyone is well and safe. Louie, it's almost ball time. Let's build a dynasty this era. Hail. It's almost time, man. I said it at the top of the show. I know at some points it doesn't feel like it because we haven't had that preseason vibe to get us in that mood and have us trending towards the season and building towards it. But we're 2 weeks away from the start of this season, kicking off the 2020 campaign with Texans at Chiefs. So it will be here before you know it. So saddle up, guys. It's on the horizon. And that's why I feel like there's so much to unravel with this team, and there's just not a lot of time to do it. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see how they start practicing and what decisions are made over the next week or so, because they got to start, figuring out who's on first team, what, this, that, and the third, and start getting these guys some work because they got to start putting in the install for the Eagles and start game planning for the Eagles week 1. And you got to know who's playing where in order to do that. That's why I think they're going to announce the starter um, which is Dwayne Haskins here shortly. And I think they're going to start ironing out a lot of the wrinkles on this roster. We're not going to hear everything. I love the fact that Ron isn't into giving out competitive advantages. So we might not hear that Dwayne's the starter. As long as he's told the team, that's all that really matters. And so I think we're going to find out that he's the starter, sooner rather than later. But he may not tell us because he wants to keep that under wraps as long as he can. But I believe it's going to be Dwayne Haskins. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see how everything else kind of unfolds as we get closer to the season in terms of all the other positional battles, who makes this roster. Like, it was funny, JP Finley had a tweet today, and he pretty much said, this roster has plenty of space for 9 offensive linemen, but do they really need to carry 9? And I'm saying to myself, I could easily give you 9, but then that 9th guy, I'm like, you really don't have to have him? You could have him if you want to, but do you need that 9th guy? And that's what I'm talking about. This roster is so intriguing because there's a number of different directions you could go, but we just don't know. We don't know how they feel about all these linebackers. We don't know how they feel about all these members of the secondary. We don't know how they feel about all these wide receivers. We don't know how they feel about all these tight ends. I'm gonna give you a nugget that Rivera gave to me a little bit later on in the show. But anyhow, I'll keep going. Got another super chat. This is from Gally Sanford. Once again, double up. Thank you for doubling up. Thank you for the super chat, Gally Sanford. Greatly appreciate you. Gally writes, how about a sprinkle and a candy? Sprinkle me, bitch. Sprinkle me. And I guess you're looking for a Gandhi man. I told you, somebody told me that they don't like when I say that. I'm gonna be looking in your in the comments to see how you guys feel about that. Got another super chat. This one is from DCJ. Thank you for the super chat, DCJ. Greatly appreciate you. DCJ writes, something tells me with Rivera's health, the team really wants to rally for him, but I'm also cool if Del Rio got to step in. My question, can we score enough? Agree? That's going to be the problem early in the season. I told you that already. I've said this is going to be the issue with the team early in the season is, can we score enough points to win ball games? I think the defense is going to give us a chance to be in a lot of these games, but ultimately you got to score points to win. And I don't know if we're going to be clicking on all cylinders early in the season offensively. I think that will come as time passes and guys get a little bit more comfortable with one another, and Scott Turner gets a little bit more comfortable and familiar with the pieces that he's dealing with, how they're best utilized, how to move guys around, things of that nature. I think that's when you'll start to see this offense take off. I think week 1, throw everything out of the books because – or everything out of the window, I should say, because everybody's kind of helter-skelter. And with no preseason, it's going to be a shit show week 1 for a lot of teams. And I think that's all the more why the reason the Redskins or the Washington football team can win week 1. And I thought we were going to win before there was no preseason, okay? So this makes me even more bullish on week 1, the fact that, the Eagles – just like us, are going to be rusty because I've said all along the Eagles are the one team in the division that had a distinct advantage this offseason in the NFC East because they were the only team that didn't make wholesale changes. They didn't have a head coaching change. They didn't have front office changes. We had front office changes. The Giants had a new head coach come in. And then no more Eli Manning. So that's the first time he hasn't been on the sidelines in almost, a decade and a half. The Cowboys have a new head coach. So a lot of different things going on in the division. The Eagles were the only ones that pretty much stood pat. So in my mind, they had an advantage, but no preseason games kind of takes that advantage away week 1. And I think we're going to have a legitimate shot at beating them. So we'll see about Rivera's health and if it is something that, really hampers him throughout the course of the year. I'm very comfortable with Del Rio taking over. This is the most comfortable I've been with assistant head coach in a long time, because Del Rio has just as much, if not more, experience in this league as a head coach than Ron Rivera does. I mean, Rivera, who became the Panthers head coach in 2011, Del Rio, I think, was in Jacksonville for about 6 or 7 years, and then he was in Oakland with the Raiders for another 3 or 4 years. So I'd like to think that Del Rio has more coaching experience, head coaching experience, than that of Ron Rivera. He's got more coaching experience than Rivera overall as a positional coach, as a coordinator, things of that nature. So I'm really comfortable with Del Rio if he has to step in. We got a really good situation, almost similar to how we have had a really comfortable backup situation with Colt McCoy as our backup. Even though every time Colt would get in, he would get injured, we felt really good about Colt. Like, man, if something were to happen to Kirk or if something were to happen to Alex, we were good. And then something actually happened to Alex, and then something actually happened to Colt, which is usually what happens when Colt McCoy gets in. He gets injured. But we felt like, hey, look, man, if Colt's healthy, I felt really good. When Alex went down, remember I made the video, Goat McCoy, and I thought Colt was really going to save the season. I felt really good about him. I thought that, and he played actually well, minus the interceptions and the turnovers, which you can't take those away. But I thought the offense looked as good as it looked all that year on that Thanksgiving loss to the Cowboys. And then I thought we were going to beat the Eagles on that Monday night. I know a lot of you probably didn't. I did. And then he gets hurt the first possession of that game. And that's the story of Colt McCoy. But I felt really comfortable with him. And I'm telling you, I feel really comfortable with Jack Del Rio as our assistant head coach, if anything were to go down with Ron. So, I think points are going to be the issue early in the season. Maybe not later on in the season when we start to get our act together. But early in the season, I think points are going to come at a premium, and I think that's what's going to stop us from running games early on. Thank you for the super chat, DCJ. Got another super chat. This one from Damn Twin Shorty Sublime. Thank you for the super chat, Damn Twin Shorty Sublime. Greatly appreciate you. Damn Twin writes, with Cam Sims and Isaiah Wright showing flashes and Dontrell Inman probably replacing Kelvin Harmon, how many receivers are we keeping and who are they? Great question. That's one of the positions that I'm very fascinated with. Receiver is my favorite position. I've told you guys this numerous times. So I'm always fascinated with the receiver position. I'm very smitten with the position this year because of the uncertainty behind it and how many are they going to keep. In the past, we could kind of formulate an opinion because we could go off of past years and Jay's track record on how many guys he liked to keep at every position, and that's how we would formulate our rosters. Now with Rivera, I've given you somewhat of a blueprint going back to his Carolina days on how many guys he would keep. However, that's not necessarily applicable to what he's going to do here. So I don't honestly know how many they're going to keep. If I had to guess, I'd say that it's not going to be 4. I've heard someone throw out 4. It's not going to be 4. The number is either 5 or 6. I think that number right now is at 5, but it could easily get to 6 if they love Isaiah Wright. But I'm looking at it right now, and we can count them off right now. Terry, obviously, Steven Sims, obviously, I think, and Antonio Gandy Golden. Those are 3 locks, for sure. All right. Then you get Dontrell Inman. I think he's as good as a lock as well. All right. So that's 4. I think Trey Quinn is making his football team. That's 5. That's when you get into, do you keep 5 and do you have the Trey Quinn, Isaiah Wright battle in discussion? Who can do more on specials? Who has the greater upside? Who can help now versus who can help in the future? Because if you're weighing your pros and cons that way, Trey Quinn helps you more now. Isaiah Wright may be able to help you more in the future. You start talking about special teams. weighing the pros and cons there. How much can you get out of Trey Quinn versus Isaiah Wright? There's a discussion to be had in different facets of where they are versus where you're going and things of that nature, and what you're looking for in that fifth wide receiver. But if you're confident that you have enough roster space to keep 6, then it's not to me, it's not a question. It's Isaiah Wright and it's Trey Quinn. But right now, I think it's 5, and I would go Trey Quinn over Isaiah Wright, just because I feel like Isaiah Wright is undrafted. There's no film on him, and if they really like him, and because there has been no preseason, and I think this is the year, and I wanted to make this abundantly clear to you guys. I don't know if I've stated this yet. I've said this to myself. I don't know if I've said this out loud, so I'm going to say it aloud now. This offseason is so unique in the sense that we don't have a preseason. Because you don't have a preseason, you don't have to, all your draft picks in past years, you would want the vast majority of your draft picks to make your football team. Why? Because you didn't want to expose them to waiver claims. You didn't want to expose guys that played well in the preseason to waiver claims. So you might have to keep, for instance, Steven Sims last year played so well that if we had decided to cut Steven Sims last year, we may not have gotten him back and been able to sneak him onto the practice squad, because teams around the league took notice. They took notes and they said, hey, this is a guy that can help us not only on specials, but we like this guy as a receiver too. And so you might not have been able to sneak Steven Sims onto the practice squad last year, which is part of the reason why I think they kept him. This year, with no preseason, no exposure, you can sneak a guy that's a 5th, a 6th, a 7th round pick onto the practice squad without really having any fear of someone snatching that guy up unless they really liked him in the draft. You don't have to worry about anybody really coming after your stuff. And that goes for undrafted guys that you really like too. In the case of an Isaiah Wright, who you may really like, but you're saying to yourself, I don't want to expose Trey Quinn to waivers because he's got tape out there. Someone may actually like Trey Quinn. There may be a team that's suffering at the receiver position with some injuries, like the San Francisco 49ers, for instance, who have dealt with a bunch of injuries this training camp and offseason, and they just signed 2 receivers yesterday or today. There are a bunch of teams out there that, or not a bunch, but there are teams out there that could be looking at our stuff. Oh, Trey Quinn's available? Let me put in a waiver claim for him. Whereas Isaiah Wright goes right through waivers. No one even blinks, and you put him on your practice squad. So I think if it came down to those two, I think they would play the who can we get through waivers and onto the practice squad game. You're more likely to get a Isaiah Wright through waivers and onto the P squad than you are Trey Quinn, who is now eligible for the practice squad after the new CBA has revised what you can do with your practice squad. You can now have veteran players on your practice squad. So you could put a Trey Quinn on your practice squad, but I don't think he would make it to the practice squad. I really don't. So I think if they had to make a tough decision there and go with 5 or 6, and they had to go 5 and make a tough decision, you go with Trey Quinn and you sneak Isaiah Wright onto your practice squad. If they go with 6, then there's no decision really to be made. You just add Isaiah Wright to the mix and you keep it moving. But we'll see. They may really love Isaiah Wright and not be overly impressed with Trey Quinn and decide to move on from him. I really think they like Trey Quinn a lot, and I think he's going to make the football team. So either it's 6 receivers or it's 5 receivers. We'll see what happens. I'm banking on 5 right now. I wouldn't be shocked if it is in fact 6 wideouts. Thank you for the super chat. Damn twin, shorty, sublime. Got another super chat. Let's see where it's from. And it is from R. Smith. Thank you for the super chat, R. Smith. Greatly appreciate you. R. Smith writes, Gandyman to DBs, be my victim. Say Gandyman 5 times. Hey, go ahead. Gandyman, 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 Gandyman. That's old school for some of y'all out there. They actually either remade the Candyman movie or they're going to remake it. I don't remember. I was scared as hell of that movie back in the day, though. I ain't gonna lie to you. I wouldn't say it in the mirror 3 times. I can't speak for anybody else out there. Anyhow, we're going to talk about the Candyman a little bit later on in the show. A lot to say about him. I did some digging and I've heard a lot of things, and I'm going to report it to you guys. So anyway, got another super chat. This one from Carlton Pagano Jackson. Thank you for the super chat, CPJ. Greatly appreciate you. Carlton writes, sending the love from Seattle, Lou. My son was just born a couple of days ago. Congratulations, man. Nothing like becoming a father. I don't know if that's for the first time for you, but nothing like seeing the birth of one of your children. It is the greatest experience and really the greatest responsibility that can be bestowed on an individual. And congratulations, man. That is a beautiful, beautiful thing. He said he's already tuned into your channel and podcast. Keep up the great work, man. Teach him up from a young age. That's what I say. I appreciate you, CPJ, man. Thank you so much. And once again, congratulations, man. It's a beautiful thing. Got another super chat. This one is from DCJ again. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, DCJ. Greatly appreciate you. DCJ writes, personally, I like what I've seen from he's from number 7. He says, touch and accuracy on some, power on others, but I think 2-minute O situations he can be more great for now. That's where he's really shined. And what I've been most impressed with Dwayne this offseason is his ability to escape the pocket. That's when you see the gained mobility by him getting into great shape. But then his decision making when on the move and some of the pinpoint accurate throws that I've seen. There's one throw where he escapes the pocket to his right and throws a gorgeous dime in the back of the end zone to Dontrell Inman, who does a tremendous job of catching the football and dragging his feet in the back of the end zone. They call it toe drag swag at the back of the end zone, and that's money right there. That's as good as it gets. It might have been his best throw of camp to this point, rolling out to his right and throwing a rifle shot on the move, pinpoint accurate to Dontrell Inman. He had another great throw on the move up the sideline, this time vacating the pocket to his right, or his left, excuse me, throwing across his body and throwing a dart down the sidelines. I think it was to Terry McLaurin, if I'm not mistaken. So he's made some really good throws on the move. That's what I've been most impressed with. And the 2-minute situation has been his specialty since getting to Washington. Had some good situations. Remember last year, his very first performance, his first appearance versus the Giants was a 2-minute situation. Late in the first half of that game, took us down the field. Now, ultimately, I think we only ended up getting a field goal. He had Vernon Davis open on an out route, and he missed him badly. But he moved us down the field. A lot of it was with his legs, but he took us down the field. And then, we all recall the Detroit game, 2 big possessions late in that ball game to help us win. So that's, to me, what he excels at right now. We'll see if he's able to get better. I agree with you, though. We've seen some deep balls with some touch and some accuracy. We've seen him drill it in there a couple of times with some sidearm action and things of that nature. So there's different layers to his game. I think he's doing a lot of good things, man. I'm excited to see number 7 out on the football field this year. Thank you for the super chat. Got another super chat. This one is from Mr. Laughing My Head Off. Thank you for the super chat, Mr. Laughing My Head Off. Greatly appreciate you as always. Mr. Laughing My Head Off writes, I'm a big fan. I'm a big Love fan, bigger than most. He went to my high school and went to almost every game. He gains 5 yards when he should lose 4. FYI, Dexter Lawrence was on that team too. I get so excited to see him play for my beloved Washington football team. I'm excited to see Bryce Love as well. Healthy. He seems to be back to his explosive self. I still think they're going to be cautious with him. Rivera has said as much. With all the guys coming off of injuries, they want to kind of take it slow with those guys and work them back in methodically. They do not want to rush these guys and risk a setback. But of the three guys that are coming off of major surgery, Alex Smith, Reuben Foster, and Bryce Love's is the less serious of the three. Yeah, he tore his ACL, but he did it further back than the other two. Well, he did it further back than Reuben Foster. Alex Smith did his before Bryce Love did his, but that's nor here nor there. Alex Smith essentially blew his entire leg up. And Reuben Foster, he tore just about every CL in his knee. So Bryce just had the ACL. That was it. So to me, he's further along than the other two. And I think he's ready to contribute a lot more than the other two as well. And it's always fun when you either have seen a guy up close and personal or there's some kind of connection there. I remember rooting for a couple of guys that I either went to school with, played with, or they went to my high school or they went to my college. I'm rooting for guys that graduated from my alma mater as we speak right now. So there's always, those ties that you have to players when it hits just a little bit closer to home and there's a little bit more extra oomph when you're rooting for a guy. And it just so happens that he's playing for your favorite football team now. So it makes it that much easier for you to root for him. And it makes you want to root that much harder for him to succeed as well. So I think you're no different than most Washington football fans at this point who are rooting for Bryce Love to take over the running back position, because we want somebody to take over the position. Like, I love Adrian Peterson as much as the next man, but there's no fun in a 34-year-old running back. There's no fun in looking at a dude and saying, man, he's a beast, but you keep saying, but how much longer can he do this for? You want the young stallion that you feel like you can ride into the future. And right now, Darius Geis was supposed to be that guy for us. He's no longer here. So now you're looking around at the running back position and saying, well, who wants that opportunity? It's definitely not Peyton Barber. And J.D. McKissick isn't an every down back. So the only guy really in the backfield right now that you look at and say, can you be that guy, is Bryce Love. But is Bryce Love that guy? I don't know. We'll all find out together. But I'm rooting for him just as much as you are. Thank you so much for the super chat, Mr. Laughing My Head Off. Got another super chat. This one is from DCJ again. Thank you for the super chat, DCJ. Greatly appreciate you. As always, thank you for tripling up. DCJ writes, my opinion, Gandy backs up Inman. Gibson gets a lot of time at wide receiver. Who do you think the number 5 or 6 receivers are? I think this position is more locked than shown. So we pretty much just went over the receiver position. I think you're right about Gandy backing up Inman. As a matter of fact, I was going to talk about that here in a second. And I'm still going to talk about it. But I think you're spot on there. I think he's not ready. That's something I'm going to talk about here in a second. So I think we know about 4 of the spots, and I've pretty much laid that out for you. 4 spots at receiver are spoken for because essentially you just took out Harmon and inserted Inman. So you still got the same 4 spots spoken for at the receiver position. Really, you're just talking about 5 and 6. If there's a 6, then I think you know the 6. If there's 5, then there's a question as to which, either or, essentially. Is it Isaiah Wright or is it Trey Quinn? I told you I think it's Quinn as 5 if they have to make that decision. If they go to 6, then I think it's Isaiah Wright and Trey Quinn. So I think that Gandy is backing up Inman at this point, and matter of fact, I don't see any more super chats. So let's get to coach and player speak quickly, and then we'll get to inside the pictures and then get out of here. So let's start with Rivera. I was really fascinated, and I told you guys all of this stuff that Rivera pretty much said on the training camp video. But, he's talked about so many different positions and how they're moving guys around. Just to point to that fact, Ryan Anderson was playing some linebacker in 9-on-9 drills just 3 days ago. They're moving guys around all over the place. But Rivera continues to talk about, the depth that they have at all these positions and how they like a lot of these positions. I talked about earlier how Rivera said that might be the most talented group of defensive backs he's ever coached, or at least I shouldn't say ever coached, because he was in Chicago, I believe, when they were in the Super Bowl back in 2005. But I think he said these defensive backs are more talented than any group he's had in Carolina, which I don't think is that far-fetched. But, Rivera talked about so many guys on this football team needing to step up, so many opportunities available, and guys just needing to seize the opportunities that are being put in front of them. He kind of just reiterated that it's a process, and that, he's trying to get these guys to see the bigger picture and how they've got to be able to push through fatigue. A wise man once told me, fatigue makes cowards of us all. And so he's trying to get them to fight through the mental mistakes that come from when you're tired. And this is a team that we've seen in the past get tired and make a ton of mistakes and not finish ball games. Well, they didn't finish a practice or two. And so Rivera has had some issues with all of those things. So he's still instilling, he's still teaching, he's still trying to get these guys on one accord. But I love the message that he is getting to these players, getting across to these players, and making them accountable. And that's the biggest thing. I don't think there was a level of accountability under the last regime. I think there is a level of accountability here with Ron Rivera. I was more intrigued, though, by what the players had to say over the last week or so. Let's start with Reuben Foster, because he talked, I want to say the day after our live stream last week. And I see a super chat here. Lorenzo Simpson, I forgot all about him. And it's crazy because I'm actually going to talk about him tonight. So let me walk that back, the receiver position back. Let me walk that all the way back. Because Cam Sims. So let me go back a second, because Lorenzo Simpson, thank you for that super chat, because I clearly blanked on the wide receiver position. Lorenzo Simpson, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Lorenzo Simpson writes, didn't hear you mention Cam Sims making the team. You're 110% spot on. Cam Sims is making this football team. And so I need to first apologize to Cam Sims, because he's been one of the standouts of camp to this point. And Rivera has gushed about Cam Sims and what he's been able to do this camp. There's no way Cam Sims is missing out this year. So Trey Quinn, to me, would be the odd man out. If they're keeping 6, that's when you get into the discussion of Trey Quinn versus Isaiah Wright. But if they're keeping 5, I think Trey Quinn is on the outside looking in. I think they're keeping Cam Sims. Cam Sims has been stellar this camp. Now, I've said this before about Cam Sims. I don't care about training camp Sims. I want to see what game Sims looks like, because remember, we saw him in a make-or-break game in preseason last year drop a couple of balls. And it really was what pushed Steven Sims over the top. If there was ever a Sims on Sims battle and some Sims on Sims crime taking place, he was the one that did the most damage to his own case for making the team with those 2 drops in that final preseason game. Meanwhile, Steven Sims had a big return and a bunch of catches that solidified his spot on the roster last year. So I want to see Cam Sims in live action when it counts and not Cam Sims in training camp, because this isn't the first time we've heard of Cam Sims balling in training camp. But I think it's a new regime. It's a staff that's been really impressed. And I think Cam Sims has taken advantage of these opportunities that he has gotten. And he's going to make this football team. So thank you, Lorenzo Simpson, for calling me out there, because I had totally dropped the ball on Cam Sims. He is making this football team. And and the crazy part is I was going to talk about that later on tonight. So the fact that I forgot that quickly, shame on me. But anyhow, we'll get back to the rest of these super chats a little bit later on. I'll go back to my coach speak quickly and coach and player speak and get to the players. Reuben Foster, I thought, was really interesting what he had to say. He talked about how he was, really scared last year and realized how quickly, he said for the first time, he realized how quickly this could be taken away from him. Something that he loves so dearly could be snatched from him. And he was so grateful to the Washington organization for giving him an opportunity when nobody else was willing to. And he said he's going to make the most of this. He said, but at the same time, he said, I don't have any confidence right now in my knee. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm just out here trying to feel it out. I'm trying to figure out what I can and can't do. I'm a little nervous. I know I'm healthy, but in my mind, I still got a bunch of hurdles to overcome. And that's what you see from guys when they get hurt a lot of times, is that there's some things you have to overcome mentally, mental hurdles that you have to find a way to get over. And so he's like, I'm not there yet. And we're going to talk about Reuben Foster a little bit later on in the show. But I thought that was a really interesting admission by Reuben Foster. And I think it's playing itself out on the practice field. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. Chase Young spoke as well. Not a lot there. He talked about Ryan Kerrigan and his influence and impact on him. He talked about what constitutes a dude. And he talked about his hip. Said that it's not 100% yet, but it's getting there. And how it was killing him to have to sit on the side. But I like him. I like his demeanor. I like the way he carries himself. I like the way that he approaches the game. He talked about his mental approach. He talked about watching film. He talked about a lot of things. He's just a good dude, and I can't wait to see him get out on the football field. But the biggest interview that I thought was conducted, the biggest presser, was that of Jaron Christian. I thought his was fantastic. One, I've never heard from him as a member of this football team. You guys might have. I haven't. So that was in itself interesting. Same with Reuben Foster. Hadn't heard from him as a member of this football team. They had been really protecting him and shielding him from anything, and rightfully so. They didn't want to expose him. He would have been like a piece of meat dangling out there had he been allowed to be available to the media. But Jaron Christian, on the other hand, hasn't played enough to really warrant anyone to want to talk to him. And, they asked him a bunch of questions about his mindset and what's different this offseason and, what's going on with his aggressiveness and, where has this been and this, that, and the third. And so there are a lot of questions, and these were good questions that were being asked of him, because this is a guy that they drafted in, I believe, the third round out of Louisville for a reason, to take over at one of these tackle spots eventually. And he talked about that, but he felt like he never thought that time was coming. And, he talked first and foremost, and I've told you this already, but he talked about training with Trent Williams in Houston this offseason, because remember, Morgan Moses was the one that brought it up, and that's when I brought it up to you guys. And so that was the first time that we had actually got an inkling that Jaron Christian might actually be our starting left tackle this year, when Morgan Moses came out and said, hey, this is Jaron's time. He went out and worked out with Trent this offseason. He's ready. It's his time to shine. And I'm thinking, we just drafted Sadiq Charles. Doesn't have to be Jaron Christian's time if he doesn't want it to be. But he's got a different mindset. And you know what I thought the most interesting thing that he said, look, I'm a talented guy. Talent has never been the question. He said, my biggest problem was I got drafted here and I came in and I saw Morgan and I saw Trent. And I said, these guys are our starting tackles. And in my mind, I couldn't see a way into the lineup. I didn't see Morgan deteriorating. I didn't see him going anywhere, and he had just gotten a new contract. Trent is a future Hall of Famer. I didn't see him going anywhere. And so in my mind, I didn't see where I fit into the equation. And so I wasn't always preparing as if I was going to play. I never really prepared as if my time could come or my number could be called at any moment. And what's funny and ironic is that in his rookie season, Trent got injured and his number was called and he was not ready. Okay. And then he got hurt. And so after that, he had to nurse the injury and he came back. And you would think that would have been a bit of a wake up call for him. But remember, he nursed that injury that entire offseason, and then the Trent situation happens. And so that opens up a vacancy on the left side, and we don't know what's going to happen. He doesn't know what's going to happen. Trent could have come back. Trent ultimately didn't come back. So they went out and got Donald Penn. Why? Because Jaron Christian wasn't ready. He was nursing that injury. He had just come back from injury. Remember, we were about 2 weeks into training camp before he was even medically cleared to get back onto the field. By that point, they had already signed Donald Penn. So he really never was able to compete for the spot with Donald Penn because by the time he got back, he still was working his way into form, and they had already given the job essentially to Donald Penn. But then, remember, there were injuries last year, you know, whether it was to Morgan Moses for a brief period of time, or even when they decided to just pull out Donald Penn, they would platoon him back into the lineup, back and forth. And he still said that, he wasn't prepared as much as he should have been. And he said this offseason, he didn't know what was going to happen with Trent, whether he was going to be back or not, but it didn't matter. He said he just put in the work. He put in he locked in and said, it's a new regime. It's a new staff coming in. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if they're going to decide to kick me inside the guard, whatever. But whatever they decide to do, I'm going to be ready. I'm healthy. I'm not nursing an injury. I'm not rehabbing anything. No excuses. I'm coming in and I'm going to be mentally prepared because I've got the talent. And he said that was the difference in Jaron Christian this offseason and the first two, him in the league, where he just simply wasn't prepared to get it done. So he said, I've always had this aggressiveness in me. I just didn't come mentally prepared to play because I didn't think I was going to play. And that's the immaturity of young players when there's a logjam at their position. And he said, look, and this is the honest to God truth, and this is human nature. When you're accustomed to always being a guy, he said, look, man, since I've been a little kid, whether you're talking Pop Warner, you're talking high school or college, I've always been a starting tackle. Left, right, doesn't matter. I've always been a starting tackle, more predominantly left tackle. And then you get to this level and you're not even getting a sniff. You're not the guy anymore. You're not even close to being a guy. And he just didn't handle that well. Remember, Dwayne didn't handle that well. And we all thought that because Dwayne came from Ohio State and there was a bunch of competition and he had to wait his turn, that he would understand the pecking order and just understand that he needed to prepare as if he was the starter. But he did the same exact thing that Jaron Christian did in his rookie season. And that's why he was ill-prepared when his opportunity came. So young guys have that mistake, that mentality, and make the mistake of thinking, well, my time isn't now and my number isn't going to be called. And so he said, look, I was just going through the motions, essentially is what he said. And I'm paraphrasing. But I thought that was, one, I thought it was a tremendous admission, and something that you don't always get out of players, but some great introspection. He was very introspective in saying, yeah, that was all me. I didn't prepare like I was a starter. And so when my opportunities came, I wasn't prepared enough for them to take advantage of those opportunities. I'm pretty fortunate to be getting this opportunity, and I'm not going to let this one pass me by. So really intrigued, and I'm rooting for Jaron Christian. We'll see what happens with him this season. So that is coach and player speak there. Let's get back to some of these super chats before we jump into inside the pictures. Got another super chat from DCJ. Thank you for the super chat, DCJ. Greatly appreciate you as always. DCJ writes, something tells me Hamilton is going to start this year at middle linebacker. I think the UNC kid, talking about Cole Holcomb, starts also, but I'm not sold on Davis starting. Struggles with pass D. I'm going to tell you right now, I am absolutely clueless at linebacker. I don't think the coaching staff even knows what they're going to do at linebacker. There have been so many combinations at linebacker taking first-team reps. Excuse me. I can't even begin to compile the list of combinations they put together. I think Kevin Pierre-Louis is starting, to be honest with you. I think Kevin Pierre-Louis is starting. I think Cole Holcomb is starting. And I think that John Bostic is starting. I think those are your three linebackers that are starting. I think Thomas Davis is getting a lot of run. He may ultimately be starting. It may not be KPL, but it may not be Holcomb, but I think it's Holcomb. I think it's KPL, and I think it's John Bostic who are going to start, but you're going to see plenty of three other guys. You're going to see plenty of Shondion Hamilton. You're going to see plenty of Thomas Davis, and you're going to see plenty of shucks. There's one more guy that I was thinking of. I can't think of his name now. Anyway, you're going to see plenty of a bunch of linebackers. It is essentially what I was trying to get across to you. It's a lot of guys that they really like. And it's so many linebackers. It's ridiculous. But I honestly don't think that Sean Dion is going to start. I don't think SDH starts. I think KPL starts. I think Cole Holcomb starts. And I think John Bostic starts, believe it or not. And I think you're going to see a lot of Thomas Davis and Sean Dion. And then I think they're going to slowly work in Reuben Foster as well. But linebacker is very intriguing. I'm probably as intrigued at linebacker as I am what they will do at wide receiver. Those are the two positions on the team that I'm actually really anxious to see what they do. Throw in corner, too, because there's been so many guys. How many are they going to keep first and foremost? Are they keeping 5 or are they keeping 6? How many safeties are they keeping? Are they keeping 4? Are they keeping 5? I think that's going to really tell the story. I think they ultimately keep 5 corners. And, who are those 5 corners, though? I don't actually know. Next week, though, on the program, we're going to have I'm going to have a 53-man roster for you guys laid out. I'm going to compile a 53-man roster, and we're going to unveil it here on the program next Thursday. It'll be the last Thursday that we'll have the Washington Football Report live, because the week after next week, we will be doing the Washington Report, nightly news, I should say, the Washington Nightly News every day as we get, the season kicked off. So that last episode of the Washington Football Report live next week, we will dive into the 53-man roster, and I think it's going to be pretty interesting what we'll find when we start digging into the cornerback, linebacker, and wide receiver positions. Thank you for that super chat, DCJ. CJ. Martin Matthews, thank you for the super chat. Double M, as always, greatly appreciate you. Thank you for the super chat, Martin Matthews, who writes, "Hey, Louie, sorry for joining late. It's all good, bro. I'm just glad you're here, man. Good to hear from you. But I think Cam makes the team because the Gandhi man is not ready, and we need a big wide receiver." Dontrell Inman is no, spring. I mean, he's no frail body boy, and he's no shrimp. He's a big 6'2" receiver, 6'2", 6'3", but no, he's no Gandy Golden or Cam Sims. You're right; those guys are much bigger and more physically imposing than that of a Dontrell Inman. So we're going to talk about that here in a second because I think a lot of you are starting to figure out that the Gandhi man isn't quite ready for the show yet. And we said that this could be the case, and I wasn't banking on him. It wasn't until Harmon went down that I started putting a little bit more on his plate than I should have. And I know I'm guilty of, really wanting him to step up once Harmon went down. And that's not what my intention was when we drafted him. It wasn't to rush this guy along. It wasn't to force him into the limelight. It was to bring him along at a pace that he was comfortable at. And I think we still can do that if Inman steps up. But if Inman doesn't step up, or Cam Sims, I really don't care who it is, as I've said before. We just need outside of Terry and Steven, we need one more guy to step up. And I could care less who it is, honestly. But we need one more guy at the receiver position to step up. And if someone can do that outside of those two, that will allow a guy like AGG to gradually come along and not have to be thrust into the action too soon and risk him, and he doesn't strike me as a guy with a fragile psyche and a fragile mental makeup, but you throw him out there too soon and, his confidence could be shattered. And like I said, he doesn't strike me as a guy that's soft mentally, but you never know. You never know. Thank you for the super chat, Martin Matthews. Really appreciate that. Got another super chat. This one is from Mr. Laughing My Head Off. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Mr. Laughing My Head Off. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, JD, Peyton, AD, Love, Gibson, we're not keeping 5. Everyone saying Peyton, what do you think? We're keeping 5 running backs. I've said this. We're keeping 5 running backs. I've always said we were keeping 5 running backs before Geis was released. Peyton Barber was the odd man out because remember, here's my logic. Here's been my logic the entire time. You need a backup for every type of back, and then you've got one wild card, okay? But you need a backup running back for every type of back you've got on the team. So AD is your first and second down back. Geis was going to be his backup, and then eventually AD was going to pass the baton to Geis, and they were going to switch roles, and it was going to be a role reversal. Geis was going to be your starter. AD was going to get the mop-up duty, and those were going to be your first and second down backs. Then you have your third down, change of pace, gadget back. That's going to be Antonio Gibson. His backup is J.D. McKissick. So, again, and I told you guys the importance of a J.D. McKissick. Why? Because when Jordan Reed was on this roster, Jay Gruden every week would devise a game plan with and without Jordan Reed. And with Jordan Reed, there would be this package of plays that he wanted to get to isolate Jordan Reed, get him out in space, get him the football that teams would have trouble defending. And then he'd find out on Friday or Saturday Jordan couldn't go, and all the stuff he'd been working on all week he'd have to scrap, and nobody else could fill that void because no one else could do what Jordan Reed could do. If you have a player like Antonio Gibson who is multidimensional, who can do so many things, You want to have another guy that can fill that void if something were to happen to Antonio Gibson. J.D. McKissic has a very similar skill set. Played wide receiver in college, has played running back in the league, but still has a lot of those same receiving qualities. So he is very versatile. He can catch it out of the backfield. You can hand it to him. You can do a lot of things with him, just like you can Antonio Gibson. So to me, those two are essential because you need one in case the other one isn't available. So there you have your starter and Gibson as your change of pace, third down, gadget guy back. And then you have your backup to him in J.D. McKissic. So that's 4. And then you have Bryce Love, who's just kind of a do-everything back. He can be first, second, and third down if need be. So that's the way I envisioned the roster. So you take Geis out, you insert Peyton Barber because you still need a backup to your first and second down back. Peyton Barber is your backup to AD. Ron Rivera has even said as much. You still need another first and second down back because if something, God forbid, something happened to AD, who are you going to stick in as your first and second down back? All of a sudden now, what are you going to stick Bryce Love in there? You don't want to rush Bryce Love back. You want to have this thing set up so that you can do it the way you want to do it and not have, the situation dictate to you what you have to do. So to me, it's not really that big of a discussion. I think they're keeping 5 backs. I'd be actually surprised if they didn't. You get 2 first and second down backs. You get 2 third down change of pace backs. You get an all-around back, and you keep it pushing. So to me, J.D. McKissic, Peyton Barber, A.D., Love, and Gibson are all going to be here. So I think Peyton Barber is going to be here. A lot of people think he's not going to be here. Ron Rivera really likes Peyton Barber. I keep trying to tell people this. He brought him here for a reason. I think he was going to be the odd man out had Darius Geis been here. But now that Geis isn't here, I think he's going to keep Peyton Barber on this roster. We'll see. We will see. Thank you for the super chat, Mr. Laughing My Head Off. Got another super chat. This one is from Mr. Laughing My Head Off. Again, thank you for the super chat. Once again, Mr. Laughing My Head Off. Greatly appreciate you. Mr. Laughing My Head Off writes, I love this new inside the pictures that you're doing. Hope you keep doing it. I enjoyed it the last time you did it. Keep it up. I thought that a lot of people enjoyed it. I enjoyed it, and I think it's a very informative segment, because pictures, they tell a lot of the story, and with us not getting as much coverage and not having preseason games, you got to try to extract as much information out of every piece of content that they give us, whether it's pictures or 7-second clip, whether it's a 3-minute and 15-second sound mic'd up segment of Thomas Davis, or it's a minute of Coach Rivera mic'd up. Like, these are the things that they're giving us in tidbits. You got to take it all. You get a 20-second clip of Terry McLaurin beating Greg Strowman down the sideline, diving and grabbing it and kicking it out of bounds. I need it because I'm not getting a lot of stuff. So inside the pictures is something that I felt like is a necessity. So I'm glad you like it, man. I really do. I really am glad you like it. DCJ, thank you for another super chat. Really appreciate you, DCJ. Killing the game tonight, man. Thank you so much. DCJ writes, something tells me that Apke is going to start at free safety. Yeah. I'm cool with it because he brings speed to the backside, but I think Davis is more physical and aggressive. No, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that at all, because one of Sean Davis's problems in Pittsburgh was tackling. He missed a bunch of tackles. He wants to be aggressive, but he doesn't always take the best angles, and he doesn't always see what he's hitting. He's one of those guys that gives up big plays because he was the last line of defense and didn't do a pretty good job of being that last line of defense. So I want to see what Apke has, and what he brings to the table. And I'm anxious to see what Troy. I've always been rooting for Troy Apke. I know a lot of Washington fans were down on Apke. I've always wanted to see him do well. I keep saying he's a 3rd round pick. I think he's a 4th round pick actually, but I've always wanted to see Apke do well because a lot of people felt like we overdrafted him and they really just turned on him from day one. Because they felt like we overdrafted him and he didn't come out of the gates, blazing. And so a lot of people turned on him. I want to see him do well. I was so excited for him last year when he played well versus the Dolphins. I'm looking forward to Troy Apke getting more opportunities. So Sean Davis is not more physical and aggressive. Apke's been really physical, almost to a fault this camp. So I would actually disagree with that statement to this point. So let's get to the segment that Mr. Laughing My Head Off just referred to and said that he really liked. And that is Inside the Pictures. And so we'll take a look at a few photos and we will talk about what these photos are, what I interpret these photos to be, and also give you a little bit of background on some of these photos. So the first one I wanted to take a look at here was AGG going up for the Rock. And this is what we thought we were getting when we drafted AGG. And brought him up. What happened? Everything seems good on my end. I see it stop though. Oh, I must have hit something. I apologize. Anyway, so this is him going up for the Rock in practice. And this is what we thought we were getting from the Gandhi man, Antonio Gandy Golden, when we drafted him. A big physical receiver that could win in the contested catch department and come down with the 50-50 balls and make plays. But he hasn't really been able to do this consistently in practice. Just listening to a lot of the beat writers talk about Antonio Gandy Golden and listen to Ron Rivera talk about him, the consensus is the guy's uber talented. He's a big guy, as you can see here in the photo, has a unique skill set, but right now he's just not getting it. It's not all coming together. And that also includes him going up for the football. And this is the thing. When you're out there thinking, and I talked about this with Jimmy Moreland earlier, and how it's just hard to function at maximum capacity when your brain is racing. And so it impacts other areas of your game. And this is a guy that probably is able to snatch the football out of the air with somebody draped on him like this in his sleep. He did it at Liberty, all the time. And yet he's struggling with that in practice right now. And I think it's because his brain is overloaded. And he's a smart guy. We know this to be a fact. But it's a lot coming from Liberty, where they didn't run a route tree. There wasn't this extensive playbook. There wasn't a lot coming to him at once. He's got a lot to learn. And Rivera said, look, this is a guy that has a lot to learn. He's got to figure out where to line up. He's got to understand when he's supposed to go in motion. And, this is a guy, Rivera, I talked about that mic'd up segment with Rivera. And he was talking to AGG and he was telling him, hey, look, dude, don't allow these guys to hand fight with you at the line of scrimmage and get you off of your route. Like, don't sit there and hand fight with them. You're a big guy. Get off of that and keep going and get into your route. So there's a lot of things, a lot of nuances that he's just not picking up at this point. And I said all of that to say this. He's not where I would have liked him to be at this point. But again, that's with me expediting the process out of necessity with no Kelvin Harmon. He wasn't supposed to be a guy we were relying on this year for a lot of production. And I need to rewire my brain into the way that I thought about him when Harmon was healthy, in the sense of he doesn't need to be a guy that we look to for 45 catches this year. You know, if he gets us 30 grabs this year, we should be excited about that. If he has 25 grabs and 5 of them are touchdowns, I would be elated with that kind of production from him. Anything north of 30 catches, anything north of 4 touchdowns, and I think it's a successful year for AGG. But I said all of that to say this. You guys need to make sure you're taking it slow with him and not putting too much on his plate, because he's not ready for that as it stands right now. But this is what we drafted him for right here as you look at this photo. As we get to the next picture, this is Greg Strowman holding it up, and that's what you're taught to do when you make a play. When you get that pick, hold it up. And Greg Strowman is a guy that I think has really solidified a roster spot this offseason. He was one of the guys I had given up on. I told you that there were a few guys that I had to rewire my brain, wipe the slate clean on. You know, Jaron Christian was a guy that I thought was nothing more than a swing tackle. Now I'm anxious to see him get an opportunity as the starting left tackle. Troy Apke was a guy that I wasn't sure was ever going to be anything more than Reed Doughty on this defense. Now he's going to get an opportunity to be a starter this year. Greg Strowman was another guy that I had all but given up on. As a matter of fact, at least with the other two that I just mentioned, in Jaron Christian and Troy Apke, I expected them to be on the roster. I didn't even expect Greg Strowman to be on the roster this year. I was done with Greg Strowman, as a matter of fact. And now all of a sudden, Greg Strowman is a guy that's been making play after play after play this camp, and you can't help but notice him. And so not only is he going to make the football team, but I think Greg Strowman is a guy that could potentially be in the mix at the cornerback position, like a guy that we're truly relying on out wide in the nickel, all over the place. And I think he also can help you as a return man if need be, because he was such a good one at Virginia Tech as well. So I really think Greg Strowman is a guy that is going to get a great opportunity this year, and I'm hoping he makes the most of it. But Greg Strowman, that's a guy that's been making plays, and you see here him holding one up as he made a play in the back of the end zone on an interception here. As we get to the next photo, I had talked about Logan Thomas making plays and him and Dwayne starting to really have a rapport with one another. And this is one of the more impressive TD strikes from Dwayne. As you can see, Dwayne all the way in the back of the photo, kind of out of focus, as he lets this laser go to Logan Thomas, back of the end zone. Thomas and Haskins have hooked up for 6 touchdowns in the last 4 days of practice. They have been in sync with one another, and this is the last of the 6 touchdowns. Back of the end zone, touchdown strike from Haskins. Beautifully thrown ball, well timed, everything. Back foot hit the ground. Saw Thomas in the back of the end zone, threw a laser shot, end zone coverage. And here's part 2 of that grab. And you see Troy Apke disappointed off to the side there that he wasn't able to get there in time. You see Landon Collins coming over. The real question here is, had this been a real game situation, does he hold on to the rock here? Looks a little fragile in his hands. He's bracing for contact. If he was getting hit here by Landon Collins, does this football come out? I'm not sure. But strong hands on the catch. He brings it in. And Logan Thomas seems to be a guy that they're really excited about at the tight end position. And we'll see if he is able to not only be our number 1 tight end, because that's not hard to do, but if he's able to surprise us and ascend as our number 1 tight end and have us looking at the tight end position differently this year, because coming into the season, we just assumed that tight end would be something that we would need next offseason. But if he's better than advertised, and they also get something out of the ex-Ohio State product, we could not be as bad off at tight end as once thought. And let me say this, Rivera also said something interesting about the tight end position. He talked about three tight ends in particular when asked about the tight ends. He said, we got three guys that, bring something to the table, and they're all sort of different in what they bring to the table. And I thought it was interesting that he singled out three tight ends because he was just asked about the tight end position as a whole. And he made it his business to single out Logan Thomas as probably the best combination of, the tight ends in terms of blocking and catching the football. And he's probably the best pass catcher that we have right now. He then talked about Marcus Ball being the most athletically gifted of all the tight ends. And then he talked about Jeremy Sprinkle being the best in terms of blocking and being the biggest of the tight ends in terms of his weight. So I don't know if I should read too much into that, but he may have been telling us who the three tight ends that they're going to keep on the roster are. He may have just told us without telling us that those are the three that he would like to keep as we get to the next photo. So I told you I felt bad about omitting Cam Sims earlier. Shame on me, because he's been one of the true standouts in camp. And this photo is from one of his best plays, and it's one of the best plays of camp to this point. I think this catch, Terry McLaurin's catch, and the Dontrell Inman catch in the end zone are the three best offensive plays that I've seen this training camp. And I'd say Sims' catch is probably number one in terms of level of difficulty. I think the prettiest and the most gaudy and flashy one was the Terry catch with the kick at the end. But if you got to see this play, Sims goes up. And I mean, he gets up. And this ball was from Kyle Allen. So it was high. Back of the end zone where nobody else could get it. It was top shelf. All right. And Sims went up, climbed the ladder, went and got this thing back of the end zone. You see 1 foot down. That second foot, he's going to do, you see him looking down at the line in front of him. He's going to do a tremendous job of getting that second foot that's in the air right now down, toe tapping it, and it's a catch. And look how excited our coach is, our DB's coach, who's back there screaming at him, Chris Harris was. He was jumping up and down, and he actually went and picked Sims up and told him, that's a hell of a catch, man. And that's the DB's coach. That's not the receiver's coach telling him that. So that tells you how good of a catch this was back of the end zone. Cam Sims has been a standout. Rivera has said as much. And I think this guy is playing his way onto this roster. And so I really think Cam Sims is going to make this football team as we progress to the next photo. I wanted to talk about Reuben Foster right now for a second, because I think a lot of you assume that Reuben Foster since he's been medically cleared, is going to be playing a lot and going to be a factor, and you're expecting him to be a factor right out of the gate. And I titled these next two photos, these next two pictures, the company that Reuben keeps. So I want you to look around at who's on the field with Reuben Foster right now. And so I'll help you out with this. I know you can read. You can see numbers. You can read. But let's look at the company that Reuben Foster is keeping on this particular snap. So he's obviously in with the second team defense. If this is, in fact, the second team defense, this might even be the third team defense, because you're looking at a bunch of guys, but this is Reuben Foster here, obviously, with the knee brace on. It says Foster on the back, so I'm not telling you anything. Foster's Australian for beer. Then you see Khaleke Hudson right next to him, rookie out of Michigan, 5th round selection by this football team, 5th or 6th round selection. And then you see Ryan B., defensive lineman here. So these are guys that we not going to make the football team. Khaleke Hudson, more likely than not going to make the football team. He'll probably be on the practice squad. Ryan B., another guy, probably won't make this football team. Probably will be on the practice squad. And so you look around at who he's on the field. Yeah, Cole Holcomb is on the field. But Cole Holcomb is just getting work, you know. But Reuben Foster, and this is what I've been hearing from a lot of people, that Reuben Foster hasn't been getting any reps with the first team. None. No first team reps whatsoever. He's barely even getting second team reps. And when he is getting second team reps, they're second team reps against the second team offense, not second team reps against the first team offense. And then he's getting a lot of third team mop up reps against the second team O. So I just want you to temper your expectations for Reuben Foster, because I've already mentioned to you that this is the same guy that's come out and said, I'm still trying to gain confidence in my knee. I'm not where I need to be mentally. Physically, I've been told that my knee is fine, but I still have to cut and run and jump and get hit and do a lot of the things that I'm still not mentally comfortable with on this knee yet. And so it's showing in practice. He's not showing the explosiveness. He's not showing all of the things that got us excited about him when we first got him from San Francisco. It's going to be a while is essentially what I'm trying to tell you, but I'm not going to stop there. Let's get to the next photo, because I want you to see the company that Reuben continues to keep on the football field. So obviously Reuben's on the field here. This is Reuben Foster here, trying to make a tackle of Bryce Love, right? So look around on the field, all right? Look around at the numbers of the players, and that's the beauty of having the helmets have the numbers on the side of them, that you can identify players. Another good thing is, and I know this is ancillary and a non sequitur, but you don't mix up your helmets. It's easy. If your number's on your helmet, you know you can put your helmet down anywhere and you don't have to guess whether this is your helmet or not. But that's no here nor there. Let's look at the numbers of these players around, and let's run through the list of these guys that are on the field right now during this rep. Do you guys know who number 61 is? I bet a lot of you don't, and you shouldn't. If you've been following this team for a long enough period, then you know that's Timon Paris. No Pumbaa around, but that is Timon Paris, number 61. Not a first team rep, okay? That's a second team rep. Who's number 72 on the defensive line, you ask, right? Great question. I've told you who this was. It's a rookie, James Smith-Williams. That's not a first team rep. That's a second team rep. You look around and you look at some of the other numbers. You know who number 50 is? I'm pretty sure you don't. You know why? Because that's Jarrett Norris, a Carolina Panthers special teams standout that quietly was brought over with Ron Rivera early in the offseason. That's not a first team rep. That's not a guy that we're not sure of if he's going to make the roster or not. Money is banking that he is, because he's a special team standout and Rivera loves him, but we'll see. All right, you look at number 79. I bet any amount of money none of you guys know who number 79 is. You shouldn't, okay? But if you said Paul Adams, ding, ding, ding. Now, Paul Adams is a tackle that we signed a long time ago in the offseason. I can't tell you if he's second team or if he's third team, all right? My guess is that's a third team offensive lineman. All right. But like I said, bottom line is you look at this photo and you see the company that Reuben is keeping, and you have to understand that he's a ways away from being the Reuben Foster that we thought we were getting. And here's the thing. He doesn't have a ton of time to prove that he's the Reuben Foster of old. It's not like we've got Reuben for another year or two. This is it. This is it. The last year of Reuben. This is it. This could be it. Because remember, we didn't pick up his 5th-year option, and rightfully so. So there is no 5th year. This is it. If he doesn't prove to be the guy that we think he could be, it could be one and done for Reuben on the field for this football team. We'll see what happens with Reuben Foster. I just thought I'd point that out to you guys right now. We move on to the next photo, and it's our last one of the night. And this is the pick 6 that we talked about at the end of practice, the last practice that they had. The practice where I talked about Ron staying after with Dwayne and J.D. McKissick on this route, and those two deciding that they wanted to work on the route, and Ron sticking around and giving them pointers on what needed to happen, and Ron essentially telling Dwayne, look, it was the right decision. You were late, and the ball placement was horrible. And this is essentially what he was talking about. Before we get to the ball placement and where it should have been and all of that good jazz, I want to point something out to you guys and bring this up. I want you to look at this red line here for a second. All right. This red line is not out of bounds. And I don't know if you've heard this before. If you've played football, if you've been a wide receiver, then you know exactly what this red line is. For those of you who haven't, let me explain what this red line is. So in the NFL, you hear this all the time. And that's guys running the red line and guys keeping that red line. And what that red line is a receiver giving his quarterback enough space to the outside to drop the football over his outside shoulder. So if you straddle that red line, the quarterback should have ample space to drop the football over your outside shoulder and you still be able to get your feet down in bounds. If you don't keep that red line, if you're inside that red line, all right, and that means you're closer to out of bounds, and now you're restricting the amount of space the quarterback has to throw the football over your outside shoulder. So that red line is not out of bounds. It's a line that's put on the field. It's an imaginary line that the players need to be able to visualize on the field when they're running their routes. You are not, as a receiver, you are told repeatedly not to allow DBs to bully you off of the red line. You are supposed to run the route and put yourself in a position where that red line exists and you give your quarterback an opportunity to put it on your outside shoulder. So that's what that red line is. So I wanted to point that out right off the bat. But anyway, you look at this next arrow that I'm going to put, and that's where this ball is. That ball on an outbreaking route cannot be thrown inside. It cannot happen. It should never happen. If you're going to miss on a pass to the outside, it needs to be outside. All right. Anything inside on an outbreaking route and you're asking for trouble. Anything late to the outside and you're asking for trouble. So this is a play where Dwayne was late and he was inside. All right. And so you pay for late when you're going outside. You pay for late and inside when you should be going outside. This is a great break on the football by Landon Collins here. And great anticipation. But he should have been beaten on this route. And this ball should have been thrown to the outside. This ball should have been right here. All right. This ball should have been out here where J.D. McKissick is able to stretch his arms out and go and get that football. Landon Collins would not have been able to undercut that ball, and you're not talking about a pick six. Instead, that ball is too far inside, and it's for the taking. And so it's a great teachable moment for Dwayne, and I love the fact that he and J.D. McKissick stayed after practice, and Rivera gave them some pointers. And again, I said this earlier on one of my previous shows, but Ron Rivera isn't staying after practice with a couple of guys that aren't going to either start or be on the roster. So, again, J.D. McKissic and Dwayne Haskins, like I said, Dwayne's your starter, and J.D. McKissic is making this football team. I think they have plans for J.D. McKissic. So, I thought that was an interesting photo as well. So, that's going to do it for Inside the Pictures this week. I think that we're seeing a lot of good things from these pictures, and I think we're seeing a lot of good things from these practices and these players, and they're growing. That's the thing that I like. These players are developing, they're growing. We're seeing guys get opportunities that we had left for dead, or at least I did. I can't speak for you. And so I'm really anxious. That's why it's killing me not getting any preseason work. It's killing me not getting these preseason games, because I would actually be able to see some of this stuff transferring over to the field and really being excited about a Troy Apke or a Cam Sims, or maybe one of these guys that may not make this roster, but you're like, man, I see some promise in a Khaleke Hudson. I would be really interested to see what a Reuben Foster looks like on the field, even if it's in mop-up duty in the third quarter with the second team out there on the field. I just want to see what he looks like. We're not getting any of that. So we won't really see what this team is capable of literally until September 13th. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But I think I got a couple more super chats before we get out of here, I believe. J.R. Hicksonball, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, J.R. Hicksonball. Thank you for the super chat, who writes, WAPO or Dan will have no outcome on our record in the next few years. Our record depends on the players and the coaches. Stop worrying about crap that won't help this team. Like I said, I think we talked about that. I talked about that earlier. I don't care about any of that stuff, honestly. But they're going to be and look, I'm not here to tell you or anybody else what they should or shouldn't care about. If that's something you want to focus on, knock yourself out. I'm not going to stop you. I'm just going to choose not to focus on that, because at the end of the day, it's going to be Rivera, these players, Kyle Smith and company, that are really going to help this thing turn around. And yeah, look, don't fool yourself. Toxic behavior off the field can seep onto the field. Don't misguide yourself. Like, don't be foolish and think that Dan and his behavior won't impact this organization, because it will. It has for the last 2 decades. Don't be foolish. However, I just choose to focus on the things that I feel like, as fans, we can focus on. Dan isn't selling the team, so I don't want to focus on that. I want to focus on Ron Rivera and this roster, and how he can improve, get better, and turn this thing around. But this is always hanging in the balance when you're talking about Daniel Snyder, because, as I said earlier, there's a track record. There have been other coaches. Just like Rivera, Joe Gibbs has been to Super Bowls, won Super Bowls. Mike Shanahan has been to Super Bowls, won Super Bowls. Rivera didn't win, but he'd been to a Super Bowl. And those guys didn't get it done here. There's a track record. So here's to hoping that Rivera can get it done, but there's no guarantee. So I choose not to really focus on that stuff either, though. Because, like I said, like you just said, not really going to impact this team on the field. We're just tired of having the negatives off of it. That's really where that starts to come into play. Now, if Dan starts to be meddlesome again, then it does impact on the field. But right now, and I don't know how long this is going to last, but right now, Rivera is in control. That's the way we want it to stay. Kyle Smith is in control. That's the way we want it to stay. If we get it to stay that way, then I think we have a fighting shot. But as we've seen in the past, doesn't take much for things to change here in the nation's capital. So with that being said, that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, on this installment of the Washington Football Report. I thank you guys for joining me. Remember, if it's not your man T, it's not the best NFL coverage it could be. I am a Washington football fan etched in burgundy and gold. My Washington spirit will never die. Washington spirit will never fold. Until we meet again, hail to our beloved Washington football team. Next week is going to be a massive week. I think a lot of things will be ironed out. I think we'll start to really have a sense of who's winning these positional battles. I think the tight end position is sewn up. I think Logan Thomas is your starting tight end. I think the left guard position is sewn up. I think that's Wes Martin. Left tackle, I don't know if there was ever really a competition with Sadiq Charles getting injured. I think Jaron Christian has locked that up. I told you that last week. I think where the real competitions lie, and Dwayne, I think, is your starting quarterback. So I think where the real competitions lie are on the defensive side of the football. You know, and I think who starts on the defensive line is really of no consequence because I think those guys are all going to play. But I think week one, it wouldn't shock me if you saw Kerrigan starting instead of Young, you know, but Young will be in very quickly and very often. It wouldn't shock me if Ioannidis started instead of Payne or Allen, but honestly, I think the Bama boys are going to ultimately start. I think linebacker is the most intriguing. We have no idea who's starting at linebacker. Zero. And that's where preseason would have come into play a little bit. We would have gotten a sense for what they are thinking. We have no idea. And Ron doesn't make it any more apparent and clear with his comments because every time he tells us, look, we're just doing a bunch of stuff at linebacker. And so we have no idea at linebacker. We have no idea in the secondary, to be honest with you. You know, there were some injuries in the secondary. Kendall Fuller missed a day of practice. Thad Moreau missed a couple of days of practice. So you had the youngins out there playing around. But, you know, they've been talking up Darby. Is he going to start? Like, we have no clue in the secondary. You know, all we know is Apke and Collins right now, to be honest with you, and Fuller. So I think it's going to be interesting next week because we're going to start to see some positions get nailed down because you got to start turning your attention to Philly here shortly. So I think you're going to find out who has nailed down some positions. I think you're going to get a official depth chart released next week. And I think you're going to have a better picture of what this 53-man roster is going to look like. I'm going to have mine for you next Thursday night. So that is going to be one of the big items next week on the show. And so looking forward to chopping it up with you guys in the near future. But like I said, practice tomorrow, not at FedEx Field. They're going to reschedule that for a future date. I don't think it's going to be tomorrow. The way they made it sounds like they're just going to go back on to the regular practice field. And so we'll see what happens. That'll probably be a date next week sometime that they head to FedEx Field for practice. But in any event, I'm going to sign off. I thank you guys for joining me, man. It's been another great program. Thank you guys for your support. Make sure that you like this video, subscribe to the Louie T Network, turn on that notification bell so you don't miss a thing, and enjoy your weekend. If there is some big news, I will be back again. Like I said last time, you know, if there's some breaking news, you'll see this face all up in your space. But I will have videos out. You know, I will be live tomorrow with a podcast episode. It's going to be a fun podcast episode. Throwback, flashback Friday episode. So join me for that tomorrow at noon. We'll be live here on the program. Also, I told you I had an announcement for you guys. I'm going to do it tomorrow. So look forward to that as well. So and also all of the exclusive things that I do on my my site and on with this brand, whether it's the Soul Survivor pool or the winners and losers. All of those are coming back full force, and I will have all the details tomorrow. So stay tuned for that as well. But in the meantime, you guys enjoy your weekend. Take care, and I will see you guys next time. You guys have a good one.